Okay. Budget.
Think we can get through this one with an hour? or something?
That's all of us we're in.
I'm gonna suggest that we move all of the fees to another meeting. It's been a long day.
Oh, the one?
Fees? Not fleas. Fleeler.
Well, and we're way ahead of the curve,
We are.
you know.
We're not gonna be announcing like we did the other year. Okay. Sorry.
We just need to have them on the-
Yep. Okay, we're ready. Welcome, everyone, to our November 12th, 2024, 2025 budget meeting, where we will be focusing on operating expenses. We always begin our meetings with our land acknowledgement. The municipality of Tweed recognizes that our work takes place on traditional Indigenous territories, including the Huron-Wendat, Anishinaabe, and the Haudenosaunee peoples. We recognize and respect the history, languages, and cultures of the First Nations, Métis, Inuit, and all Indigenous peoples whose presence continues to enrich our communities. Miigwech. Could I have a mover and a seconder for the approval of today's budget meeting? Thank you, Deputy Mayor DeMarsh. Thank you, Councillor Valley-Cat. Any questions on said agenda? Gloria, can I mention here that we will likely postpone the Section 15, budget reconciliation, looking at fees. Budget summary. Yeah. Okay, so we'll postpone that to another meeting.
Lori, do you have another copy of the letter?
I
can just.
Oh,
Okay, be it resolved that the agenda for the November 12th, 2024 budget meeting be approved as presented. All in favor? Or as amended, I should say. Are there any disclosure of pecuniary interest? Seeing none. Mayor's remarks. Yeah. Excuse me. This is our second meeting to discuss our 2025 municipal budget. Today, we'll be focusing on operations. Our October 29th budget meeting focused on capital expenditures. As I noted on the 29th, what we discussed today and what we conclude today does not mean that we will not revisit our decisions throughout this budgeting process. I'm also proposing that we leave user fees until December or January. There will be a number of other budget meetings throughout the 2025 budgeting cycle before we present the final 2025 budget. As it currently stands, we are looking at a 17.1 budget increase, which is a significant reduction from the 47% increase that we started with. Also, please bear in mind that 4.4% of the 17.1% increase is due to the provincial OPP levy. For example, in 2024, our OPP costs were $1,046,000. In 2025, our OPP costs are $1,284,000, an increase of $237,000, or a 23.7% increase from the previous year, or a representative tax increase of 4.4%. Furthermore, this OPP fee represents 23.4% of our current budget. So when we're looking at what we currently have, this amount would account for 23.4%. Almost a quarter of your tax revenue is going to pay for policing, a levy that municipalities across this province are fighting. Every municipality. Also, everything that we table does not include major infrastructure costs for these projects, replacing Queensborough, Kinlan, and Rocky Altar bridges, and resurfacing Flinton Road. We've applied for provincial funding and are hopeful that the province will finally acknowledge the financial burden our taxpayers are facing, and that they will provide the necessary funds required to address the situation. We will also reach out to the federal government, but their response to the crisis facing small rural Ontario has been abysmal. We also received our 2024 asset management update, and the numbers are beyond realistic, are not obtainable, and border on catastrophic. This report, as valuable as it is, sets us up for failure, and we do not stand alone. Municipalities, large, small, and very small, such as ourselves, are at a crossroads. Governments keep throwing money at building new infrastructure, at least at large urban centers, but fail to realize that existing infrastructure across all municipalities is crumbling at an alarming rate. Our proposed annual commitment, the amount we are required to set aside to deal with aging infrastructure in accordance with our asset management plan, now stands at over 13 million per year for the next 20 years. This is in addition to our current capital and operational expenditures for 2025. Absolutely not attainable, nor can we ever move in that direction. So as I've said, we will do the best that we can. We are not miracle workers or magicians. Nonetheless, you can count on us being fully transparent and that we will continue our fight with both levels of government for your fair share of your tax dollars. However, we are getting to the point that we cannot do this alone, and we may have to come calling. A united front by all Hastings County municipalities, small rural and northern municipalities across this province, and you, the voter, will have to stake claim to that which is rightly yours. Take note, Premier Ford, Minister Surma, Minister Calandra, Minister Bafani, MPP Brise, Prime Minister Trudeau, and Minister Fraser. We are not second-class citizens. It is time you recognize that we may be small, but we are mighty, and we can make or break governments. When you stand with us, we all win. And when you stand against us, then your days are numbered. Enough is enough. So on to round two. Okay, Gloria, turning it over to you.
Okay, so thank you, Mayor, for that. I will start the budget meeting off as we start off all of our budget meetings with a quick video for anybody who might be new and first tuning in for the first time, of our residents who may not understand everything that council has to consider when they are going through the budget. So I'm just going to play a video that was done by the MMAH, which is the membership of municipalities of Ontario's treasurers and, sorry, not MMAH,
Municipal.
MFOA, that's it, Municipal Finance Officers of Ontario, who have prepared a video to help explain to residents.
Okay, I would like to help you understand how your municipality develops its budget. We always hear about them, and often this can feel like another language altogether. Before we get started, there's important information you should know. Ontario municipalities, like the municipality of MFOA, receive approximately 9% of all taxes collected, but are responsible for over 50% of the infrastructure. Let's start by looking at what the word budget means. Well, simply put, it's a planned, itemized summary of money that is coming into the municipality and how that money is spent for a specific period of time. It's very important to note that provincial government legislation in Ontario states money coming in equals money going out, also known as revenue equals expenditures or a balanced budget. The municipality of MFOA provides more than 60 services to the citizens of the municipality, so municipal council and administration always have to make difficult decisions to ensure this balancing takes place. There are two main components of the budget when looking at the money going out side of the scale. Operating pays for all the day-to-day activities of the corporation. This includes items such as salaries and wages, utilities, supplies, fuel, and insurance, just to name a few. The capital budget pays for all the new big investments or the rehabilitation of current assets under the municipality's control. So let's focus on how the municipality collects to pay for all these services. For every dollar that comes into the municipality, 64 cents comes from property taxes, 21 cents from grants and subsidies, and 15 cents from user fees and other sources. So, now we've learned what a budget is, how municipalities collect money, and how they spend it. Now let's take a look at how these pieces work together. money comes in through property taxes, grants and subsidies, and user fees. The money collected is required for both the operating and capital budget. We've already talked about the operating budget, including day-to-day expenses, but it also includes money for funding capital budgets. The capital budget pays for all the new big investments or the rehabilitation of current assets under the municipality's control. This connection is made through three methods. The capital levy method reflects a pay-as-you-go approach. The reserve fund method, which reflects a planned save now, acquire or use later approach, and the debt payment approach. Okay, so let's recap. 1. A budget is a plan for money coming in and money going out. There are two building blocks to the municipality's budget: operating and capital. 2. The operating budget is like you're paying your house bills to keep the lights on. Just like in a normal household, our bills go up with inflation. 3. The capital budget is like your major outlays: vehicles, house, renovations, etc. 4. Money comes in from three sources: property tax levy, user fees, and grants and subsidies. 5. Money coming in is used to deliver over 60 services to municipality residents. 6. Municipal council and administration, with the input of the public, decide how to best balance the municipal budget guided by provincial legislation. And that is how your municipality develops its budget.
So now I would like to invite the library CEO to come in and complete a presentation for the library budget. This will be found in sections, it was section 8, so 8.8.
Welcome, Shannon.
Thank you. I'm gonna have Gloria. Yep, I'm gonna have Gloria play a video that we've done for today, and I'll let you guys watch it, and then afterwards, if there's any questions for me, please feel free to ask.
Okay. Wonderful, thank you. I see that you presented your budget. There's one number that seems to be missing from the page I just got, but I did see it in here, and that is the total for 2024. It's missing at the bottom. Where did you say it's in here?
So the ones I just handed to you will be the sheets that will be going into your binder, and they're section 8.8. So they're not in the binder that I had
Where did I
handed.
see them?
They're
Oh,
those,
on here, I think.
yeah,
yes,
it
yes.
would have also been electronic as well.
That's right. That's right. Anyway, I see that you're keeping your increase to a very minimal amount. Could you tell us a little bit what that amount is?
Oh, yes. So we decided, as the library board that, the increase was going to be, at a 3%. That's to cover, any additional increases to wages, benefits, things like that, that will, go up over the new year. So we just took that across the board. We're expecting a few increases, obviously, with inflation, you know, your hydro, your utilities, things like that. So that's what we've done there.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to make a couple of general comments. First of all, the wonderful thing about our library is it's a socioeconomic equalizer. Nobody needs to have money to be able to enjoy the library. It's there for everyone, and it's basically free, as you presented in your presentation. I think what's also wonderful is to see that almost a third of the people that live in this community are members of our library. Over 2,300 and some, I think you had stated in your presentation, which is amazing. We don't get that many using other things that we have. So thank you very much. I mean, it's wonderful that we're reaching that many people, that your people who are joining the library is increasing.
Absolutely, yeah.
And then the other thing that you're doing is the amount of money that you calculated that you're basically saving people. And that is also helps those in need who might not be able to afford either internet or subscriptions or books or whatever. So thank you very much for that. When we met with Parliamentary Assistant Smith at Roma last year, we did a delegation. And well, two things came out of that. First, I want to mention the reason why we did the delegation is that I think in 1998, the amount of money that the provincial government funded our library was about $12,500. 1998, so here we are, 2024, 26 years later, the amount of money that the provincial government funds our libraries is $12,500. It has not increased in 26 years, yet the role and responsibility and the services that the library provides have increased dramatically from the days when it was just a book. So when we met with Parliamentary Assistant, Parliamentary Assistant Smith, who is the Parliamentary Assistant to the Minister of Culture, Tourism and Sport, thank you. She recognized that the province needed to do something. We were hoping that we would have heard by now. It's almost a year, but nothing's changed. But the one thing that she did say is when we presented in our delegation everything that the library did, she was blown away about what you were able to accomplish and provide. She then shared a story with us about the impact the library had on her children and how it actually, because of the activities they were involved in and their interest in library, it helped them develop the careers that they eventually went into. So it's amazing that when we touch people, we don't know how we're impacting them, and we could have a real great impact on their lives and the directions that they take. And I think that often comes from our library. So personally, I want to thank you for everything that you do. I also want to thank you for sitting on the Food for All Committee. As we all know, we have a great deal of food insecurity within our municipality. The library has stepped forward as one of the key players in this, along with Gateway Community Health Center and a number of other community groups. But front and center, Gateway and our library provide meals in a bag to go, and you can go in at any time and when in need and be able to secure a meal so that no one goes home hungry. So I want to thank you for that as well. Go ahead, did you?
That's thank you very much. I was just going to talk to that a little bit
Please.
with the Food for All. So not only do we do the meal kits, myself and another worker from Gateway Community Health, we're teaching kids the importance of eating healthy, and we're teaching them how to cook the basics. So we do a 6-week program every Tuesday, and I invite 10 kids to either come to the library, whether it be Gateway, and we've also got a number of partners this year that are willing to work with us. So we'll be at Cube, we'll be at the community care, and we're going to show young children, the importance of, like I said, eating healthy and having to prepare things. So that came out of a grant that we did. We're also doing a lot of programming in the schools. So we'll be going into the schools and doing a healthy lunch program with them that we're looking forward to in the new year as well. So, yeah.
Well, thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions of the library? Well done. Thank you very much.
Very much.
To you and your board and everybody that works with you, including staff.
Thanks, Shannon.
Okay, next.
So next, for ease of not forgetting once we get into the binder, I would like to go to the report in our electronic agenda on the benefit cost estimates that I have received, just so that way we don't forget to review it once we get into the detailed departmental ones. So in that report, I was directed to, after hearing some requests from staff, to obtain what the pricing would be if we had amendments to our benefit plan for, there was 4 different things that were being considered. The dependent life changes for insurance, mental health practitioners, so increasing that or changing how it is done, whereas right now it's a set amount limited per visit, and looking instead at maybe an annual limit instead. Speech therapists, annual changes, and medications. So we have several different options. It's probably best if we look at it kind of one by one. So with dependent life insurance, there were 2 price options provided in addition to the keeping the same of what we're at. So right now we receive $2,500 per child and $5,000 for a spouse in dependent life, which back when we first started this was a much higher percentage of the cost of an actual funeral. However, now costs of funerals have gone up and this amount is not really comparative to what it was originally intended to help cover at the time. And so they priced out with child's increasing either to 5,000 or 7,500 and then spouse to either 10,000 or 15,000. The additional costs per year, and this is for all 32 individuals that are covered, if we increase the child to 5,000 and spouse to 10,000 would be $800 or $813. And if it was for 7,500 for the child and 15,000 for a spouse, it would be $1,626 for the year.
If I just may, when I added all of this up, if we went with the maximum amount, like that you're quoting for everything here, it's $7,600 or something a year. 7,400 per year as an additional cost.
Yes.
Staff members.
20,
How many staff members would that be?
So this covers 32.
so that's, to me, is quite
Um,
reasonable. So I mean, rather than go into, I think these were things that the staff asked for. You've done your homework, you've come back, the costs do not seem astronomical to me in any way. And at $7,400 a year to provide these additional services to 32 staff. I would like to say, let's put it in for the budget right now. I don't know, that's my feeling.
I'm with you as well. Our most valuable assets are staff.
So we would just need a mover and
I will
seconder
read,
for
I'll
that.
read it. I just want to see if anybody else has anything to say. Go ahead.
I agree 100% that I think it sounds like a wise thing to do for staff. And just so that essentially is in dependent life insurance, number 3, mental health practitioner decision, number 4, speech therapist, number 4, and medication decision, number 4. All,
Yes.
thank you.
Any other comments before I read a motion? Any mover, seconder? Yes.
So this is in conjunction with the counties.
Yes, so
Okay.
our whole benefit plan is through the county group plan. So we are benefiting from the group rates that exist for us as a whole. So if we were not part of the group, we would be paying more for these specific items than otherwise.
Just a reminder, Council Fielder, to put your mic on when you talk. Oh, that's okay.
Sorry.
That's okay. It's okay. Okay, so could I have a mover and a seconder to table the cost estimate, to table the, okay, here it is. to table the cost estimates for potential benefit package amendments reported as presented, and further that council choose to increase each of the following amounts to the maximum as identified within the report, amounting to $7,400. Moving to seconder. Thank you, Council Parmentier. Thank you, Council Valiquette. Any questions? All in favor? Thank you. Okay, next.
Okay, so I'm just going to share my screen here so that the public can follow along with us. And for simplicity's sake, while we're working through the binder, I'm going to start us in section 4 and just work our way back.
Thank you.
So the first section we'll start with is 4.1 and 4.2. So 4.1 summarizes the changes year over year. One thing that will be different from the original printed package than what you will see on screen is, as was mentioned this morning in the regular council meeting by the mayor in his mayor's remarks, the OMPF funding has increased. So we do have an extra 183,000, which has been able to allow us to start this meeting with originally starting around that 17% tax increase. We're now looking just below 13% as the OMPF did give us about 3.5% of additional tax levy savings. So we're actually starting off with, I think it was 12.86% this morning.
Now,
or this
let's
afternoon.
bear in mind too, though, that you've got nothing really going into reserves to the
That is
extent that we
correct.
need to.
There,
So I don't want people automatically to assume that
Mhm.
now we're down
yeah.
13, okay?
That's correct. That is without any transfers into reserves other than water and sewer, which are not funded by taxes. And
Or the fact that if we have to borrow money for our infrastructure projects that I listed, that we have to have a loan and interest payment that has to
Yes.
go towards that if the province does not come forward. Even there might be even if we have to borrow 30% or whatever those projects are worth, there's going to be that additional cost.
yes.
Okay.
So, so the biggest part of our non-departmental, where it's not specific to any one department to manage, is our OMPF funding. So this is the Ontario Municipal Partnership Fund from the province. As mentioned, it has gone up 183,000. We do have some transfers to reserve in this department that are the start of the repayment of the bag tag loan that we had used to offset the use of the working capital reserves throughout 2020, 21, and 22. And then there's the, as was discussed in prior years, the repayment of the operating deficit amounts that were to be completed before the end of this council's term. So that leaves us with the non-departmental summary of seeing an increase in, a decrease in, oh, sorry, I did say it right the first time, an increase in the tax needs of 228,000. And that's largely because of the increased amounts of needing to start repaying back that bag tag reserve fund loan and not having the loan income in to offset our tax as we did in the last couple of years.
How much we owe the bag tag?
Just 1 second, the bag tag reserve fund. We currently owe. That is on page 10.6. So we have $45,900 outstanding from the 2021 Everlife loan program, $43,457 from Napanee Road loan, which was also done in 2021. And then the 2 general reserve fund loans, there's 471,000 from the 2023 and 235,000 from 2024. And those include the interest that we are required to pay back that bag tag reserve fund. So it's about 796,000 that we'll be paying in the next 3 years.
So that just takes right there alone, takes up the 183,000 we just got in additional funding just to pay back those loans if you looked at it that way.
Yes.
Yes, go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
So why does this have to be paid back in 3 years?
The direction last year that council had directed staff was that this was to be set up so that it would be by the end of council's term.
That's right.
Or as close to thereafter as possible. And so we are still working under that direction at this time.
I think it goes back to the concern that we've had that we tabled last year, and we're gonna have to do it again this year that we can't continue to borrow, even though we are being pushed in that direction, because when we borrow, when that loan has to be paid back along with interest, we strap future councils from being able to undertake the work they need to within their mandate. But we'll see how it goes. Hopefully, the province is going to come through with the funding that we've requested. But we're going to be in another situation. Well, we have time. We have no idea when that funding announcement is going to be made. I'm sure it'll likely be just before an election, which means we'll probably hear about it in the spring.
Well, they did announce that it was supposed to be in early 2025. So
Yeah.
usually when they say that, that means the first quarter.
Yeah.
It's possible they'll announce it around the Roma conference time, as they do like to, at the conference, to be able to announce the awarding of certain grants or the start of new grant offerings. So I imagine
That's
that might be one of
January.
their-
I don't know if they're going to be ready by
Yeah.
January.
So that's typically when they try to do them. But anytime between January and March is when we're
That's what I'm thinking,
expecting
March.
information on both of the grants that we have submitted.
Okay,
And I did provide in the budget binders and for the public in the agenda, the OMPF calculation of how they actually calculate our funding. It's at section 4.2. If anyone in the public has any specific questions on how the province does that or where these numbers come from, they can just reach out to our office. They can either reach out at info@tweed.ca or to my email directly at cao-treasurer@tweed.ca or by calling in to the office.
I do want to go back to the Ontario Municipal Partnership Fund. The reason why we were very fortunate this year, they have increased the pot by $50 million for 2025, bringing it up to 550 million. And then they've committed to another 50 million in 2026, which will bring it up to 600 million. And if all holds true, hopefully they're not clawing back on anything, but we could be in for another 183,000 next year, which would bring us to what, 360,000 over above what we had in 2024, which would be a real,
Yeah.
and hopefully that stays. And so it's sort of some guaranteed increased funding for municipalities.
So if it proceeds at the similar calculation, we would be looking at approximately 2.4 million from OMPF for 2026.
And when you think of it, 2.4 million, we are definitely extremely grateful, but 2.4 million out of 600 million is a little drop in the bucket, but we're going to take our drop. We'll take
Yeah.
our drop.
So are there any questions in the non-departmental stuff before we move into the actual administration department? Okay. So in the administration, I summarized all of the changes between 2024's budget and 2025's budget in 4.3.1. So the property taxes that you see there, in the past, we had budgeted 10,000, which was a net of 25,000 for supplemental taxes, less 10,000 for potential, or sorry, 15,000 for potential write-offs. There is a change in this with this year, as there's the new power dam payment. We have been very consistently getting $664.58 for the last 10 years. And so I wanted to specifically include that amount in. And then because we also consistently had much higher supplemental taxes over the last several years, and with the additional growth and development that we see coming online, and when we expect the occupancy permits to be issued, we've tentatively increased that another 5,000. So that's why that property tax line there is increasing by $5,600. In the user charges, the biggest change here that making up the most of the 16,000 is in the past, we had always budgeted for about 15 to 20,000 from the BISB for annual amounts based off of what we'd received in the past. With the new agreement adjustments that have been done in the last year, it's now a confirmed $5,000 per year, with additional amounts if the board deems they have excess funds to be able to pay out, which are not necessarily guaranteed. And so we've dropped the budget to reflect only the 5,000 instead of the 20,000 that we had been in the past, even though if there's excess funds, you will see higher than the 5,000, but the 5,000 is the guaranteed annual amount for the rental of the space that we provide them here. So that's where most of the 16,000 decrease in that line is coming from, is 15 is from that BISB adjustment. Penalties and interest, as we have seen a increase in the balances that were outstanding over the last year, we've decided to increase it back up based off of where we expect this year to end up being. So as at November 6th, so with 11 months penalty and interest, we were already at just less than 91,000. So we're expecting that 94,000 is probably a reasonable spot where we believe we will be at for 2025 in penalty and interest. And investment income, part of that decrease is interest rates are now dropping again, which is great on the debt side, not so great on our invested money side. And so as we get lower cash values and interest rates dropping, we're not necessarily going to see the same amount of interest that we might have in the past. So that means that the administration revenue, we're expecting to see a total net decrease of about $15,743. The salaries and benefits line, this is where you'll probably see the biggest change. And in that, largely is because right now the administration department is holding the entire 130,000 estimate for the pay equity and market evaluation adjustment, as opposed to trying to determine what departments that will actually be for. It's just showing all in the admin. So when you take out that 130,000, it's actually a small net decrease for all other adjustments, other than for now adding on the $7,400 as was just agreed upon. I'll need to put that in there as well.
Now, I just want to address the employment equity. I know that there was concern last time, why are we doing this and whatnot? We are mandated, we are legislated that we have to do employment equity. It's mandatory. We are behind, we can be penalized. What do you penalize? I guess you call it, like, is it
Yes.
fined if we don't do this, and we have put it off till to start it towards the end of this year. That process has begun, is my understanding. You're looking
So
at,
we have the tenders out and are waiting for the responses to be able to award the contract.
and so what you've got in here is an estimate of what.
Very rough estimate.
Rough estimate. However, we have to do this. And so we're going to have to just bite it, okay? Because we have to fulfill our fiduciary responsibility to both the government and to our staff in ensuring that this is done. So I just wanted to make that clear. It has to be done. So thank you.
So in the materials line, there's several adjustments there. Part of it is we have an increase of about $6,800 in the training and staff mileage accounts to account for the additional training costs we have some key staff and some that are new in their positions that have several courses that are lined up throughout 2025 for them. And so the budget was adjusted to accommodate for those additional courses. We've also asked to increase some of the costs for operations of this building. So building repairs and maintenance, we asked to increase it by $1,000 just based off of the costs that we've seen this year. And being able to try to maintain a more regular maintenance system for all of our HVAC and general repairs to avoid the more costly ones. We've asked for an increase in hydro costs of about $1,000 to just deal with the rising costs that we have there.
Now, going back to electricity, we're under an agreement with LAS for our electricity, right? Will we get
Yes.
some kind of a subsidy or
Yeah,
reduced rate?
so we're in something that's referred to as a hedge program. So a hedging program is where you basically a portion of your cost. So let's say your hydro bill costs $100 for the month. Or you would expect it to, you can hedge a certain portion of it, let's say $60. We will always get this $60 portion at actually $50. And the other $40 will fluctuate based on the actual market price. So if the market price made it so that the $100 should actually be $150, we still only do that first 60% at $50 and the 40% at the higher rate so that we would pay a lower amount overall. When the prices decrease, we still pay though that 60% at that hedged in dollar amount. So if it dropped from $100 to $70, we'd still pay that first 60% at the $50. So there is a potential here and there, but being that hydro costs are only increasing right now, I don't see we're at a risk of that, of losing on our hedging in that one.
And LAS is a program managed by AMO.
That is correct. We have a similar one that we just entered into in 2024 per council's direction for the natural gas as well. So we're hoping to see about $1,400 to $2,000 in saving across the departments in our gas heating as well for our buildings.
Thank you.
So in 2024, the festivities and ceremonies account had been reduced by $6,000 as the holiday event for the staff and the committee members. The Christmas dinner was asked to be deferred for a year. And so right now it's being proposed putting back in. So that's that's 6,000 of that 46,000 increase there.
Well, we'll have to decide on that soon then, if that's something we're going to leave in, because it's next month.
No, so this would be for 2025.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Okay.
So yeah,
Okay.
so it's not for
Okay.
2024, so
Okay.
this would be for 2025.
Good.
So
Okay.
you have time.
Okay, good.
We also have seen some increases in cost of supplies, including paper, toner, and as much as we've been trying hard to reduce the amount of supplies that we do use at the office here, limiting the amount of things that are actually printed, we still are seeing that we're going to need approximately a $6,000 increase for 2025 to offset basically anything that we might need to print and provide to our residents. As an example, just to purchase enough tax bills for a single year's billings between the interim billing and final billing, you're looking about $5,000 alone just for the tax bills to be able to print on them. And then we have the water bills that we have to purchase and then all the late notices as well. With postage, we've also, with additional mailings that we've been doing over the last year, making the assumption that we'd be doing similar type notifications, especially with some upcoming changes in the waste and recycling world that we're looking at. As much as we're going to try to get the province to do a lot of that advertising for us, there's some parts that we might want to do ourselves. And so I'm suggesting that we increase our postage budget by $3,000 to account for ensuring that we get our residents are aware of everything that we want them to be aware of. There were 2 accounts that were requested by community development to be transferred out of the administration department and into the community development department. So you'll see minor changes in that and materials. That would be the volunteer appreciation event and the plowing match costs. Because those have traditionally always sat in the administration budget, but they've always been managed by the community development department. So it's not really a net change to the overall tax. It's just moving it to the department that actually manages it. The contracted services, you'll see an $83,000 decrease here. A lot of that is we've in the past have done our asset management plan always externally through a consultant. And being this last, that the bulk of the work and the most complicated part of the process has been completed, the final stage and requirements we're working on right now, and we got approved through the Amp It Up 3.0 program through MFOA and AMO to be able to get some free consulting hours. We're going to bring this in-house to be able to complete the final stages on this one. That will save us about 30,000 in consulting fees. By being able to utilize this program with some free consulting hours. And I have been working with each manager on making sure that we have accurate information to be able to have that asset management plan meet the requirements for the next deadline, which is July 1st of 2025. And our hopes is actually to get it to council sometime in April for the initial review for about a month before it's actually on a council agenda.
Gloria, I see you've got here that audit costs are going up by 9,900.
Yes, so when we did the budget in 2024, we had budgeted a flat 30,000, but when the tenders actually came in and the audit was awarded, the amounts were actually 37,000, then 39,000 and so forth, plus the HST that we don't get back on it. So it's been adjusted to not be at the 30,000, but to be at the actual amount that will be charged for that budget line.
Well, that's a huge increase.
I think
Yeah,
so.
that most audit fees were large increases.
I think
and
we should
across
show the
province,
percent of
but-
that increase. I mean, we talk about, we show percent OPP, we show percent.
Okay.
Yeah, because, you know, I think everybody thinks inflation and everything is down like, 1.5 to 2.5, but it's not for us. Okay, so I want anything that's extreme like this, I want to show the increase it is and the impact that it has on us.
Yeah, so that would be about a 33%.
Right, and so, so say it's around $40,000, it's getting close to almost 1% of what we bring in.
Yes.
Okay, and a tax increase goes towards audit. Yes, Councillor Valiquette,
Mayor, do we shop that around at all?
we did.
Yeah, so last year we did go to a full tendering process and we only had one submission, which is common across a lot of Ontario municipalities in the last couple of years. There's been several places, even large places, that have only gotten one, sometimes if they're lucky, two bids. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of accounting firms out there that are still working in municipal finance, and it's unfortunately that's just kind of the way that market goes, and it is something that we do have to do, but there's not very many out there, and they are having trouble keeping their own staff, as well as most will start off, get their initial training, get their designation, and then they move out into the industries.
Fair enough, thank you.
So the other significant portion of why there's an $83,000 decrease would be that in 2024, we had budgeted for all of the environmental studies of approximately just less than 60,000 for Hannah Street in getting all of that done. We're getting close to that. It's being prepared to submit and get the records of site condition. But the actual environmental part of studies of that was all completed in 2024. So we're not expecting to see that other 60,000 again. That was a one-time expense. So then in the rents and financial expenses, there's a slight increase there expected of 6,000, due largely due to increasing bank fees. We received a bit of an increase there. We could look at going out to a tender, though changing banks is quite the process, but it might be time for us to do that again, just to make sure that we're getting the right services for what we're paying in bank service fees as well. And because also we had some additional changes with Microsoft 365 this year to take on all the additional new accounts for emails and everything. We're expecting all of those total changes to be about $2,000 extra as well in 25 compared to 24's budget number, which was before all of those adjustments. The external transfers, when I had first did this document, it was with removing the Central Hastings Support Network as we were waiting to see what was going to happen for the transit program. And because we had been doing 5,000 for hospice and 3,000 for the transit. I believe now that we know there's a commitment that it's going to be continuing and there's going to be still a transit system in that process, we need to, under our agreement for the provincial gas tax, we do have to submit some amount in. And so there had been a request last year that we actually look at increasing that from 3,000 to 5,000. So I've added it in here right now to be back to the 5,000. But that's up to council as to whether we wish to increase from the 3,000 to 5,000 there.
And so you got here 3,000, but where's you in the main part, you've increased it to 5,000.
Yeah, so this was a decrease of 3,000 originally when I first drafted this, but then in the last week, we have identified that the program is going to definitely continue. And so we need to put that 3,000 back in, and then plus if we want to increase it per the original request up to 5,000.
Thank you. I'm going to invite Victoria Treverton to come in Q1 they can't release the new proposal right now for the transit system, but it's going to be much more cost effective, but it's still going to require that we support it in any way that we can. The municipalities have basically agreed that we would look at going up to 5,000 to kicking it in because of the importance of it, but they've got a good proposal carrying this forward that hopefully is going to be sustainable. Okay, with us still contributing, but they're looking at, they've come up with a real good plan. And that was Brandy Hodge from United Way and Victoria and their teams that put this together. And all of the mayors were very impressed when we had that meeting in Sterling on November 8th.
So with all that, the operating portion of the administration department is looking at a net increase of tax needs over 2024 of just shy of $116,000. And again, 130,000 of that is tied to that pay equity, a very rough estimate to the pay equity market evaluation amount there. So that brings the net operating costs per office hour that this admin building is open to the public is estimated to be about $569 compared to $508 as it was in the past. And again, part of that is that pay equity, which is multiple departments just currently all sitting in an administration. Are there any administration specific requests, questions, comments that we want to deal with before we move on into protection services?
Well, this is good. So if you take out the pay equity, there's been very little change in the
Yeah,
Good.
because we had consulting costs in 2024 of 20,000 and we have 130,000 for pay. So it's actually 110,000 adjustments. So the actual administration department is actually adjusting by approximately $5,800,
okay.
excluding that pay equity aspect.
Thank you.
Okay, so if we then move into section 5 of our binders, we'll start off with fire. And I will pass it over to the fire chief to walk us through the changes that are specifically being discussed and for any questions to be directed to him.
Your worship and council, so starting through there.
So your mic is on there?
Yeah, we had
Okay,
on there, yeah. So we start, do you want me to go through the revenues too? Lori at the top there. So just starting out there from the revenues, transfers from last year were 71,237.95. We will not be expecting them this year. That was transfers from stuff that previous supplies that we couldn't get from previous years. So should be a saving this year, about 71,000 that we won't be transferring this year from like we did last year. Expenditures, salaries, benefits has been increased there by 26,235.90 for additional training hours needed for the volunteer firefighters. So we talked about before with the training, it's been taken last year. You looked at last year's line and we had about 38,000 in the training line. We have less training hours, but we need more wages for the training. So this have basically been moved from the training line up to
Sure.
wages. So there's hasn't been a change in basically in that.
Gloria, is the fire department impacted by the employment equity?
Potentially, but estimated impact would be minimal, as it is typically more of a male-based position, as when the government looks at it and they tell you to genderize your positions, they say if you have more than 70% males in the position, then it's deemed a male-based position. And I believe that we are above 70% of our volunteer firefighters would be male.
Derek, is that the case?
Yeah.
Thank
Yep.
you.
Rudy. So some affecting their materials decreased this year by 48,871 due to repairs and maintenance of trucks. We can drop some of that down. We've transferred some stuff over from the years from previous expenses. And we've also had we have had an increase of hydro this year, be $400 for the water and sewer and hydro rates. Cost of training this year, like I said, it was brought up as decrease 21,000, but has been transferred up to wages there because we are doing it in-house and stuff, which does move that up there. So there's isn't much of a change in that there. Vehicle gas has been decreased this year by 18,329, and we'd had transfers from the year before previous to that. So we dropped back to a normal rate now of I think we're at 10,000 this year. So building repairs maintenance has decreased by 3475 from last year to this year, just considering regular repairs and stuff to the building. Medical costs, supply costs decreased 1596 because of last year we'd had expenses and defibrillators and stuff, so we don't have as much expense this year as that because we have new update equipment there, so we won't have that expense this year. Food for firefighters has decreased by 500, just reflecting on
Derek, if I may.
Yeah.
Have we ever reached out to paramedics and to see if when you're looking at buying your medical supply costs and
Yeah.
stuff, that you partner through them and you get a better deal? Do we do
it's
that?
just yeah, we do talk to them, but the only thing is they use different equipment. They have so much, they got the advanced,
Yeah.
they run the 12 lead and stuff like that, where we don't run that. And it's to buy it, they get their purchasing is from buying that 12 lead
Okay.
unit and stuff. And it's way more in advance than what we need to have for the guys to have that thing. That's be the only
Okay.
thing in that. And for the other stuff we use is the basic stuff is that we would get that for VSAs and that type of stuff. Our pads, they usually use a different machine. They won't let us use our pads. So it's kind of a thing. They use our pads and then take the pads off and put new pads on something. So it's kind of a
Right. Okay.
catch-22 kind of thing. So yeah.
Okay,
no, we
good enough.
definitely look at that for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah. So oh yes, and festivities has went up 250. They're just for rising costs and the food and stuff for that there for a Christmas party and that. Insurance has decreased by $3,628 this year because the prior to last year's budget, there is the price of the new pricing's come through and then to drop the increase. Personal protective equipment. We've got a pile of equipment this year, bunker gear, and that we have, because when I started, we bought a bunch of equipment and it's good for 10 years, like your helmets, boots, bunker gear is good for 10 years with the NFPA. And we had bought a bunch prior to that. So we have about 5 to 6 sets of bunker gear that we have to replace this year coming in. It's about $3,000 a set. So, or plus, and then the helmets that used to be $300 are now $500, and that whole on and on boots. That line supplies all of our any PPE that's structural gloves, extrication gloves, any of that stuff, hoods. Now we have to go to now too, as I just seen a new thing come in the NFPA. There's the protecting hoods. We usually were like a head type thing was go to here. Now we have to be required to have protecting hoods that go right down shoulder coverage with the protecting coverage, so it doesn't let the smoke and stuff. So we've purchased a bunch of them this year, and we're going to purchase the rest of it for the other staff for next year's budget. So because of the expense of them, so.
And how much are they? Just so people know.
About $140 a piece. So
Okay.
times, 25 to 30 guys. So it's, yeah, sure. Everything. Yeah. They got all that stuff there. So, yeah. And, so that's what we have an increase in that at 48.96 this year. Cost of radios and pagers down a little bit. We did replace a bunch of new pagers and radios last year. So we're getting caught up and, up to date on that stuff. We may have few more repairs this year, and one there with an issue with one of the trucks, but hopefully we can get it done reasonably. So,
And the new system is working well?
yeah, no, we're very happy with our new the pager, or everything's working very well with our new dispatch and stuff. We're very happy with it. So Contracted services, that's just, we, down 8850 this year because we did our community risk assessment. That was the $10,000 we'd put into that in the last 2 years doing the community risk assessment, and that's complete now, and you'll have to do that every 5 years, and we'll keep that up to date ourselves now from now, once we've got the growing document, so that'll save us some down the road. Dispatch costs, we're up $1,150, which is our contract, that we have the 15-year contracts. We know exactly how much it is. It's like a 3% increase each year for our dispatching fees. Additional transfers, 10,000 to the following with the automatic aid. So the automatic aid with that is when we do, we have Madoc Township, Stone Mills that do cover for do calls for us in Stone Mills area, and in the other side, like in the Queensboro and that or whatever, in Lincoln Lake, they deal us out a lot with Madoc Township. There's that fees. The other thing that we have is a fee that we need to look at is this year is we are starting to get into buildings that are taller and stuff, and to have coverage with for aerial coverage for like aerial trucks. So I've spoke with some other local departments that do have aerial trucks, and I mean, that's kind of an automatic aid agreement. It's not, we can't reciprocate that back to them with mutual aid. So we would need the automatic aid. So it's just a small fee. They would be if they had to run the truck out with our new buildings and stuff that we're getting built now that we couldn't access with our, we are getting a taller ladder and hopefully with their new truck or whatever, but that will help us out a bit. But this is just one more little fee that we would have for an automatic aid agreements, and with the other townships that we supply us will service. And then we have basic preliminary inflationary impacts, increased Tweed's joint services about $5,000 this year for the board cost. And then capital expenses, we're not going to, oh yeah, sorry, yeah, we're good. So that's everything from there now. Does council have any questions for me at this point here? No, that.
Yes, please go ahead, Council Palmetier.
Your worship, or through your worship, the only question I have is if like those hoods that you're talking about that are required now, like your opinion on the added safety they provide to our staff. Not that I should be spending more money, but like we're saving right now, we're saving about $2,200 by moving it off to next year. But I think the safety of those guys is worth more than that. So that's my only concern. I know we've asked all staff to make cuts where we could, but just what your opinion is on that piece of equipment.
Through worship to Councilor Palmetier, we are getting purchased. We've got some now. Some of them come through for our interior attack and stuff. So anybody that's going to do interior attack, like our firefighter twos that have to do that, do interior, they've had them in place now to do with that. Oops, sorry. And then through the ones that they're getting there, we will have enough to get probably get the rest of them for early in the year with so that everybody would have a particular hood on there. Like they make a big difference when you're doing an interior attack because all the heat, the exposure to the carcinogens and stuff like that is where the one, if you're doing at a building outside building structure, you don't get that kind of as much attack. Basically, you want the hood on for protection and for basically in the wintertime, it's a great heat, keep the heat in to keep the guys warm or girls warm. But yeah, definitely that's something that's we have a bunch of them right now that we're putting on this year's budget that we counted for this year to have the ones for interior attack, and then there'll be enough to finish so everybody will have that.
Everybody will be okay.
They'll all be trained next year, but appreciate that, James. Definitely for sure. Thank you.
Yes, Councilor Fleeler.
Yeah, through his worship, Derek, so that's a balaclava you're talking about?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Balaclava, but they call them a particulate hood now, so they're a lot thicker and they don't let the particulates through. They go right through your they kind of cover right down your shoulder and stuff. And we've seen from the guys even going training at the training tower that have been in the cans doing their training in the last few weeks, we've been down. And the guys, when they come out, you can tell the difference of the soot because it's like it's clean here. They don't get the coverage of the face and stuff. It's that much better and stuff. And they do definitely work. There's 100% better. So
Good. Yes, Councilor Valiquette.
To the mayor, to the fire chief. So I'm just curious about the radios and pagers. So does that fall into our agreement with the service provider for?
No.
So pagers seem very antiquated to me. Is there a reason we don't text or I don't, I'm just looking for a.
Yep.
broader explanation. Thanks.
Yeah. Through your worship and through Councillor Velkat. So we do have who's responding. We do have the guys having their cell phones. We have areas still in our area that do not work very well with cell service here. So you do not get the service on them. Like we have a provider each year that does it. That's who we do. Like, so I know how many people are coming to the calls and stuff with who's responding. The pager is getting, like I said, like you said, it's antiquated, but they do work pretty much anywhere you get the response for them. They're starting to get to a point now where it's getting to a point where they're getting ridiculous, and truthfully, they're extremely expensive. They've gone up in price, probably doubled in price in the last 3 or 4 years. And like I said, for a guy to carry them on your hip, but they do give you immediate response, and you do get the message just tells them where it is. They've got repeaters on them. They tell them where they are. Most people will wear them. And like I said, down the road, if we get better cell coverage,
Yeah.
then I can see them being definitely down the road here being a thing. Because I mean, most departments now are using the Who's Responding app or calls of Who's. There's about 3 or 4 different ones, and they are handy for us because they have mapping on them. They have navigation on them, so I can push my phone and tell me where that is, and it'll navigate me right to where the fire is, the address in the township or whatever in the municipality. And we're not there quite yet with the cell service. We've increased in our trucks that we do have boosters, and 2 of our trucks now have cell boosters in them because there's places we go where you do not get cell service.
Yeah.
And the cell boosters work very well, but you got to be close to that cell booster for it to work. So that's, if we get with the 5G and stuff, if we start getting the area, start to get better with the cellular service, we probably will be able to eventually, I would think, go to full cell service. I mean, because it is using their cell phones and stuff and their data and whatever, but it is getting to be down to a point now where they're getting extremely expensive, and hopefully that the cell service gets better and we can provide some kind of a different option for them, because they are the other thing is radio repairs. Like that line too is with radio repairs, just like our radios that you have issues with them, broken cords or get wet or that type of thing. Batteries for the pagers, it's batteries for the radios as well too. So that's all the maintenance for all that, and on our trucks as well, the radios on our trucks, that covers the radios in our rigs, all the trucks, the base radios and the base station in the fire hall as well. So that's part of that maintenance as well. So
Okay, thank you. I see the common sense for the radios. I
yeah.
just, and
Yeah,
I,
I know what you're
obviously
saying.
pagers, there's, like I said, apps and whatnot out there that would replace the pagers,
Mhm.
but maybe the mayor can message the fact that we might need better cell service
Well,
out here.
That's been, even on Highway 37, you lose. It's ridiculous. Supposedly this area by 2027, they've got Marlbank, they've got Queensboro and whatnot, are going to get towers. But I mean, one of the things that's come up is we're talking about, even though we're putting up more towers, we seem to be getting worse and worse service. And the warden had expressed at our last county council meeting that when the Eastern Wards Caucus was looking into this and saying, what's going on? It's because more people are dropping their landlines and people are going to cell services. There's more drain on the towers now. So it's just like, it's going to be almost impossible to catch up at the rate everything's going these days, but.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, Deputy Mayor.
To the mayor, to the fire chief, you've got this cancer prevention machine to clean bunker care. Now, I see in the news that's a 2 or 3 year that they're going to be doling out quite a bit of money. Are we able to dip into that again after this year?
Yeah, through the mayor to Deputy Mayor DeMarsh. It's a 3-year program. We can apply for it all 3 years, and we are supposed to get, I think that's basically, they kind of laid a dollar figure per hall. It'd been better if they would have did it, give us the dollars to buy the washer, the dryer, the whole thing at once, instead of giving us a bit this year, that, whatever. But they did it per station. They figured that's how they're making it fair. If you have one station, you get this much dollars or whatever. But we will definitely be putting in for it for the next 2 years, and probably will, from what we say, we're going to receive that as well for the next 3
Just to
years.
mention that's capital and we're not talking.
Oh, yeah, no, I just seen it on here.
Yeah, okay, good enough.
Yep.
Thank you. Good. Any other questions of Derek? You have my blessing. You can go now. Oh, yes. Okay, Gloria.
So just for the public, so that you understand, based off of the total properties that were in MPAC at the beginning of the year, as we saw in the council meeting this morning, this number does need to be updated, but the information that I had when I first drafted this is we had 4,809 properties. So it costs us to provide fire services to all of those 4,800 properties, about $116.50 per property, estimated for 2025, just to get fire service to your property. So now we're going to move into the other protection services. This zoomed in, so I can't see what it is. Okay. Which will include, so it's at section 5.3.1 through to 5.4. So this is where our policing is, our animal control, including the livestock claims, bylaw enforcement, and conservation authority costs. So the user fees are expected to increase approximately $75, and that's largely as there were more dog tags this year than what we expected. And with the increase in fees that we estimated for last year, we're expecting that that's going to continue rising as there's more individuals who are owning dogs. The material costs, keeping with the dog tag aspect of things, the dog tags have been historically costing us less than what we have been originally anticipating. So we're dropping the budget by that to reflect where we actually expect our ordering costs to be around. So we're expecting it to save about $250. The contracted services is where we see the largest increase, and this was alluded to previously with our OPP cost have drastically increased. Policing costs have increased $237,716. So most of that 240,000 is the OPP. The details of how they calculated it was provided in 5.5.1 through to 5.5.15. The other increases there are more averaging, seeing a higher increase in average cost per call for animal control services or for the livestock evaluations, and just making sure that the actual or the budgets reflect where we expect the actuals to be.
For the animal control, we have a monthly retainer of $1,200 or something. When
Yes.
does that contract?
So that contract is up for a new tendering process in March of 2025. So right now, this is without knowing what our tender
Sure.
results would look like,
Okay.
and assuming we'd be around the same, but hopefully we'll either see some savings or maybe some change into how that one's actually going to be managed going forward.
Okay.
And so animal control also includes our kennel cost as well. We do pay the Humane Society a fee as well every month for being on standby to take any animals that are collected. And if they are housed, we pay a certain amount per day that they are housed for as per the contract that we've signed in with them as well. That one, I believe, has an extra year, not until 2026 for renewal on the kennel licensing.
I really would like to pursue what Councillor Fleeter is always talking about, making this a completely cost recovery service. So if we're housing a dog at the Humane Society, whatever that bill is, that goes directly to the person who claims their dog.
Okay.
Yep, from now, like, we have to start doing that for these kinds of services. Thank you.
The external transfers, we're expecting a slight decrease, and largely that's because of the bylaw costs for our joint board last year were increased as at the beginning of the year. We did have 2 employees working until that had transitioned back out at the end of March. And so we're expecting a full year of just 1 individual. And so therefore, as much as there will be inflationary impacts there, we are expecting some savings in the fact that we won't have 3 months of 2 staff working. We do have the Quinte Conservation budget was provided to us and is provided in this budget binder at section 5.6. And we will see a total increase in the Quinte Conservation Authority fees of $3,866.25 over 24.
Which is reasonable considering what we've seen in the past come from that organization.
So largely due to the policing, our overall increase in net tax needs for other protection services, so everything other than fire, is almost 237,000. which when looking similar to the fire is approximately for every property that we have, $267.81 to provide protection services to our properties. Are there any questions? I believe there was one from council on policing.
When you say it's 267.81 compared to 218, but we already talked about the big increase here that we're looking at is policing. So most of that is attributed to policing.
That is correct.
Okay, how much does it cost just for policing per household?
Oh, sorry, that is just the policing.
That is just. the
That's just
policing.
policing.
So, okay, $268
Yes.
per household just for policing.
The cost per dog tag or license that we issue if it's a kennel license is $80.41. And we're currently charged $25 per dog tag and $100 for the kennel license. Livestock claims cost us on average about $81 per claim, and we only receive $50 from the province back for each one of those.
And when was the last time that was revised?
They actually revised that in middle of 2023 based off of some advocating that Tweed had actually started, and AMO then reached out and got a lot of information from us and some other municipalities that had supported it as well. And so they had increased it from $30 to $50. And we said, thank you, but please know that that's still nowhere near the cost of what it is to actually investigate, gather all the information, file the claim report, and then actually issue the checks out to the individuals. And then for cost of bylaw enforcement. So right now for 2025, we're expecting it to cost us approximately $54.17 per hour of estimated services that we'll receive for bylaw enforcement. And the cost for conservation cost per property is just less than $20 per property.
When we get to the point where we're finalizing our budget, I would like each of these that you're talking about right now, it's summarized on a page. So how much is it costing for policing? This is how much it's costing. This is how much per household. This is how much it's increased from the previous year. You wanted to write something?
Yes, your mayor, I think that you're talking on this here. I was gonna suggest that instead of other protection, we actually put OPP in here.
Yeah, we
Is
should
that what you're-
list them, yeah.
Like, and then it goes across the line, you know, we know it was $1,051,000, $1,081,000. Now we're up to 1,322. I think to take that out of just contracted services and have a line policing, you know, just so the public can pick it out. That's my opinion. And they can see where that increase came.
Okay, any other questions? Yes, Councillor Palmetier.
Your worship, since and maybe I'm incorrect, but policing, like the calls for service are mandatory for the OPP, correct? So really I don't know, maybe I'm way out to lunch, but the base service is what the municipality should be paying. Well, what would happen if we just paid the base service? $53,547.17 per month. Instead of $107,027.
So so with 2024, we have actually been purposely paying our OPP monthly bills about 3 months late. They have not yet charged us any interest on any of those. But they do start pestering us after it's been about 2 months. If we just started paying a different amount, there would be a lot of time in office spent amongst staff with dealing with the phone calls. I understand what you're referencing and discussing, that, you know, if it's calls of service they have to provide regardless, then should it only be base that we're paying? But that until that's actually changed on the provincial level. Unfortunately, our bill is still going to keep coming in, and they're going to still keep calling and pestering, when are we going to be paying that difference? And if we do it for too long, they might actually start charging penalty and interest as well.
And like, Council Palmetier raises an interesting point, which sort of piggybacks on something that Councillor Valiquette has raised before, is just don't pay the OPP at all. Because it is a service they are and have to provide. But the problem is, like, we get 2.3 million in Ontario Municipal Partnership Fund, where you can rest assured that whatever ROPP, regardless if it's one portion or the whole thing, would come off of that. They would start withholding money to
Yes,
us.
so the province does have a rule that OMPF is actually the first grant that they will always withhold funds on. If you are owing anything for too long of a period, they won't be out money. It's just, I'm not sure what the time period would be before they would start clawing it out of the OMPF fund. So we'd still end up paying it.
The thing is, and so the way around this is through the motions, such as the one that came from Councillor Valiquette or the Wasaga Beach or Aurora. We have to lobby together to get systemic changes to the system, which are going to have an impact on us. We start taking initiatives ourselves without the support of everybody else jumping on the bandwagon. We ultimately pay the price of the day, even though it's a very valid point that Councillor Palmetier is making. Go ahead.
Mayor, in the past, we've explored options of maybe, and I know you've talked with the mayor of Belleville before. Is this worthwhile having another conversation with Belleville?
I was told that by them that it's going to be very expensive for us to gavel up here.
Well,
Yeah.
They've got all kinds of different things going on.
Mm. Go ahead.
Your worship, not directly related, but it is. We've heard all these stories many times, like the housing issue, 11 years. Policing, we've heard that for the past 12, 14 years. And all of a sudden they're gonna do this, they're gonna do this, they're gonna do this. They do nothing. I don't know what to think anymore, really. But it's the same old story. Yep, oh yeah, the library board. They were so in, you know, the encouragement was there.
Yeah.
Yeah, my kids, nothing.
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't know what to think, like, I mean. And we do need everybody to step up to the plate and work together.
Well, it's interesting
Togetherness.
because fellow councillors on county council, or we call fellow mayors, they look at us and they say, why the hell do you waste your time doing delegations? You know, and the point is because you get the song and dance and you get nothing at the end of it.
Yeah.
And the point is, we do it because we want them to know what we are facing. If we sit back and we just take it and we don't respond, then they can say, well, no one ever told us, no one could ever hold this council to say that we never did lobby on their behalf of the taxpayers and this residents. We're one of the few municipalities that do, and we do so vigorously. And we will continue to do so. And that's why we do it. And that's why when we meet, we don't only meet with the ministers responsible who are in government, sitting in power, but we also meet with the opposition parties so that if these issues come up, everybody's operating with the same base of information so that they can defend us when they're at the table. Nobody can say, well, I didn't know. Everybody knows.
And your worship, like. If I was a sitting MP or an MPP, and we've had good ones, and we do have some good ones, but. I would pound the streets every day to try to help the people that are in my riding. I don't know what they, like. You know, you gotta speak up. I'm sure if you spoke up enough, well, they might kick you off the team, but.
Well,
You
you're
have to
not
make-
part of a team
Well.
if they
well,
don't respond to you.
That's
So,
exactly right.
yeah. Okay.
one more, Mayor, they had a conference call scheduled for their billing
Mhm.
and they canceled it.
No, well, that's because there's been so much opposition.
Any idea if they've rescheduled?
No, they have not rescheduled. I think the government is backtracking on this huge increase. I think that they're going to either try to put it over a number of years or mull it out or take back some of the costs and absorb them themselves. There has been a huge outcry. This is prior to you starting your that's right. You're the catalyst. Because of you, we're all paying more now. Thanks.
Yeah.
But anyway, yes, and okay, one more thing and then we'll move.
Okay, and your worship,
then
this
Councillor.
$200 rebate to every, like, I mean, so they're gonna borrow the money,
Yeah.
3.2 billion.
3.2 billion.
So by the time that we, the people that got the $200, pay that money back, what's it gonna cost each person?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
$1,000?
Yeah.
Minimum. So how did you put a little jingle in Jimmy Fleeler's pocket? You didn't,
Little
you
jingle.
took it out.
Little jingle. Okay, Councillor Valiquette.
So through the mayor to the deputy and deputy, I'm just asking if you may be able to find out, because obviously they canceled the meeting where we were going to be able to ask questions. But when I read on page 5.5.4 and at the top, it talks about uniform members, it talks about an inspector. It gives everybody's salary, and it appears that we're responsible for some of that. And I'm trying to figure out where an inspector would fall into the rank structure at our local detachment. I understand that we may go to regional headquarters and speak to somebody who's a commissioned officer. But and I just may be reading this the wrong way, like it, you see where it shows the staff
Yeah,
sergeant
no,
detachment commander.
I saw that too, and I thought, they don't have an inspector at that detachment.
No. And
that detachment's small enough, that's why he's called staff sergeant detachment commander, right? So that's a valid point. I think that question should be raised with the billing department and say, hey, we don't have an inspector at that detachment. Why are we paying for an inspector? You know,
Do you see anything else there, having been part of that process?
Me?
Yeah.
No, well, it's been a long time since I've
Mhm.
actually looked at this. But that one just stands out to me, like it talks about municipal support down in the other direct operating expenses. Which,
Mhm.
and it doesn't it says support costs, municipal support, which to me would be where say deputy, being the chair of the police service board, calls to express a concern, he would be speaking to the chief. I wouldn't think he would call and speak to an inspector. I think he would start there. So I'm just not seeing why, if we are, should we be paying for like where it says uniform members and detachment civilian members, those are things that are tangibles that we see in our community one way or the other, either through a building or through a car. But these other ones at the bottom are things that come from somewhere else in the province. And at the very top of that list, it talks about an inspector. And I don't think that we should be, that's why we have a detachment commander.
and the other anomaly we have is says staff sergeant detachment commander, which we have. Underneath it says staff sergeant. So you don't have both, you have one or.
No, but an inspector detachment does have a staff sergeant.
Yeah, but we don't.
No.
That's what I'm.
No, you're right.
Okay, so, yes, go ahead.
Just for some clarity.
Just with, as we're speaking on this right now with the OPP billing and breakdown, nowhere in there does it show like revenues that they gain from fines or anything. It goes to the county.
It's in the provincial coffers.
Like, I just don't understand why it doesn't reflect it on anything that they show us. Because
Speeding ticket, and Councillor Valiquette will know better than I would, but speeding tickets and those things are refunded back to the county. Now, the question I always had is if they're redirected to the county, because I raised a stink one time when they had a speeding blitz going on 37 and they were issuing tickets out of Napanee, which was going back to LNA County, not Hastings.
Yeah.
If they're doing these speeding blitzes in our municipality, is the county sending that money back to our municipality?
Well, they don't send it back to our municipality. They probably use it to defer the costs that would normally come back to our municipality. Right now, Belleville, for example, the county runs the ticketing and the processing of the tickets and everything. And you think of what's happening in Belleville right now, it's like, they have to put on additional resources now, the county, to try and cover that, but the money goes to Belleville. So we're gonna have to, it doesn't go back to the county. So we're gonna have to do that. The whole thing has to be rethought about the implications for municipalities and for collecting the fines. Go ahead.
I believe, so that was a problem years ago. They would sit on 37 and somebody would come from Napanee, use the wrong ticket book and would get paid over an LNA. So I think they corrected that problem.
Okay.
Which is good, but that money all goes to the county and then it's equitably distributed amongst all of the member municipalities. So Belleville and Quinte West, I believe, get all their own stuff, but get a percentage of everybody else's. Right, and it's divvied up that way. It's kind of flawed.
Kind of. Okay, yes.
Yeah, your worship, the reason I asked is I know it's coming back directly to our county, but we pay for it as a province, split up between all the member municipalities. You think that all of the fines and revenues would just come off of that base rate that we're all paying to begin with? That's the only reason I brought it up.
I think a lot of it actually goes back to general revenue too, right? If there's something in like criminal court, it goes back to general revenue and it gets redistributed broadly through all ministries.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions on this before we move on? Gloria?
Okay, so we will now move into section 6 of the budget binder, which is for roads and transportation, and I will pass it off to the manager of public works to walk us through the roads budget.
Thank you, Gloria. Council and our worship, start with revenues here. We have a 3250 increase that reflects the balance required to offset increased costs for repairs and hydro. We need to start conducting biannual, 2-a-year inspections for our pedestrian crosswalks as per legislation. That's why we're going to see about $2,400 increase for that line. Also, cost of electricity are going up, so we need to account for that as well for our streetlights. User charges increase 40,485 due to the following: increased charges for municipal consents with proposed change in rates generated. So we're estimating it's going to be $48,485 dollars generated in 2025 for our municipal consent. This is also offset by an $8,000 decrease in expected aggregate revenues received from being a host municipality to gravel pits. Revenue has been decreasing, and to be conservative, we've left it at 8,000. Investment income is expected to increase $903 due to higher balances in the investments for aggregate pits. Overall expected increase in operating revenue was 44,638. Expenditures, salary and benefits are expected to increase 32,273. That's due to our wage and benefits bylaw annual increases. It also should reflect the acquisition of a foreman position as well. Slight increase there. Material increased by $368,678. This is largely due to our reinstatement of our gravel program, which will be $225,000. It's also to do with the new budgeted line of health and safety supplies. Staff are requesting $3,000. This will cover gloves, sunscreen, water, green books, the need for PPE for specialty tasks, and other health and safety needs. Previously, guide rails and bridges were coded together. It wasn't shown in our budget lines, but that's the way it had been done. So I'm proposing a new line for guide rail repair and maintenance. This will cover the cost of new posts, cables, signage, any damaged steel. A lot of the times there's accidents around this municipality and we're not able to recover costs, so we got to be able to account for it some way. Tree removal costs and maintenance were increased $1,000, 20% due to the ongoing ash tree deterioration. It's still a pretty big problem. We get numerous calls monthly to take down trees, and we're pretty fortunate we can do a lot of it in-house ourselves, but you come to a situation where you need a professional, and we rely on them to do kind of the more dangerous stuff. Dust reduction, our calcium program has had some savings this year. We haven't adopted formally, but we've started implementing more of a spot program where needed. So I believe this year we saved, it was close to $30,000 on that program. And we used it for the Durapatcher, doing some more preventative maintenance on our roadways. This year I'm asking to reduce it 5,000, and we might up it again, but it's expected to account for some increase in material costs for calcium. The gravel resurfacing program, I touched on that. We're asking to have that back to 245,000, which is see an increase of 225,000. We have machines in-house for culvert thawing. I don't see the need to have a budget for that anymore. So I would, I'm asking to get rid of the $2,000 budget and that line altogether. Hardtop patching, is expected to increase another $3,000. I'm also suggesting if Flint Road isn't completed this year, we budget for an additional 5,000. As it is taking a good portion of our time and material up there. Signs and 911, we've been over budget the last couple of years, I believe, on this line. $3,000 is just a kind of match inflation, what we've actually been purchasing. Garage repairs and maintenance have been increased $2,000 due to aging building infrastructure. We're using $10,000 right now to maintain three old shops that need a lot of work. So this is not any kind of repairs, whether it be electrical, you know, fix a hole in an overhead door, anything. And due to the aging of this infrastructure in these buildings, we're asking for a $2,000 increase to this budget line. Excuse me. In the past, oil and lubricants have always been grouped together, in with fuel costs. I'm proposing that account be done away with, and create a new account for consumables, i.e. DEF, gas, diesel, and then a budget line for oil and lubricants, non-consumables. I believe the overall savings to merge these two, or sorry, to split these two is $70,000. That's also taking into account the new fuel tender we put out this year, which gives us quite a bit of savings in all of our lubricants, DEF, any kind of fuels, diesel, all that stuff. Repairs and maintenance on equipment and vehicles, we're asking for 146,000 increase to reflect the actual repair costs of our aging equipment. It's quite a bit, but I see in the future having more mechanical breakdowns, and after speaking with our mechanics, we have some trucks that are questionable whether or not they'll be able to get back on the road next year. Greater plow steel, this is also, I prefer to call it just plow steel. This is just blades we put on all of our equipment, wing blades, greater blades, cutting edges, things like that. We have a decent stockpile. We're going to get the rest of it ordered here shortly, but we should be able to save some money in that regard next year. Truck licensing budget decreased $2,500 to reflect closer to actual cost and past amounts based on historical values. Repairs and maintenance work on sidewalks have been increased to 4,000. We have a number of sidewalks that need attention around here, and we currently don't have the money to get that done. Training costs have increased $5,000 to cover annual winter maintenance training as per our salt management plan that I don't believe we've been doing currently, but we want to get on a program for that. We need to have flagger training completed for all of our staff to actually run a proper TCP. Daily inspection training. This will give the guys a better understanding of what to look for when it comes to as far as maintenance and I guess repairs, and have a better idea what to look for and when to look for it. AOR's Good Roads Conference, CVOR training. Insurance has decreased $3,572. This is because it was estimated at the prior year amounts, actual plus 10%. Prior year budget was done before final insurance quotes had been allocated across departments. Streetlight repairs, maintenance, and utilities have been increased $3,250 to reflect the rising cost. Contracted services we were asked to get a quote for a roadside spraying program. This is $16,250. This is 15 kilometers of guide rail spraying. So it would be, it's quoted to get us 15 kilometers of 1 meter. So if we were to look at other amounts, it would be an increase based on square meter. It would be an extension into our ditches, not just on top of our guide rails. So it would be more if we were to look at something like that. Stormwater needs study needs to be updated every 5 years, was last done in 2020. We're estimating $10,000 to get that completed. External sweeping costs have increased $3,000. This is based on rising prices and our sweeping needs. Uniform rental prices have gone up $1,500 a year to reflect that. Transfer to reserves for aggregate activities due largely to the decrease in expected aggregate host fees, less increase in aggregate investment interest income for net impact, $7,997. And we're not speaking to the capital, correct?
Right.
Okay. Is there any questions?
Yes, go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Through the mayor, the manager of public works, I just had notes here for external sweeping and your uniforms. Is that something that we can put out for retender?
My plan is to put out the sweeping for tender this year, try and save some money. Uniform costs, we could possibly explore that option. We could also collect quotes from other suppliers too, try and get those numbers down as well.
Okay, thanks.
Yes, Councilor Valiquette.
Salaries and benefits, so you alluded to the slight increase for the foreman. Can you tell us what that slight might be?
So when we calculated back in the summer, when this was first brought to council, a foreman position was approximately 3,400 to 4,600 increase per year, before including the benefits impact, with the savings that we were seeing on the other hours, for 2024. So the actual amount, I've recently updated it as we did just receive the new, I forgot to mention this earlier, sorry. We received the new prices that go into effect December 1st for our benefit program. And so actually when we put in the new rates for the plan, it's actually going to be dropped down to an increase of only just less than 27,000 with foreman in their position as well, which is higher than the other, which was 6,000 a year, let's say for 2025's rates. And then the benefit impact.
My next question is just training costs. Do our roads, and I'm sure we have some super competent operators, do they ever participate in, like Aorus has a rodeo, and do they do anything like that?
Through his worship, yeah, they do. It was kind of a last minute thing this year. We had intentions of sending some of our guys to it. It was very last minute. They kind of put the details out for that, but that is something we want to get our guys more involved in, have them in these rodeos, kind of showcase the municipality of Tweed and kind of get our name out there, network a little more. So that is a focus for next year.
Councilor Flaylor.
Your worship, I'm concerned about this gravel thing here. We had to purchase gravels for sanding program. I don't know why we had to do that, but we've got 70% of our roads are gravel. So I don't think you need DOT spec gravel on those roads. Anyway, we got an increase of $225,000 for gravel resurfacing. So where are we gonna get the gravel for that? Are we gonna use it out of our own pit?
Through his worship to Councillor Fleeler. So that was based on a delivered amount from a contractor. It would be delivered. Typically when we do these gravel programs, we do this in-house. It takes up a lot of our time. I believe I brought the numbers forward on what it costs per contractor to come in and do this and what it costs us to do it. For us to lose about, 2-3 weeks of time where we can't go and do other maintenance, that's a huge cost for us. We're saving on our maintenance on trucks. we're saving on maintenance on trucks, man hours, diesel costs and everything. You can see our diesel and fuel consumption is way down this year. That's based on using a contractor to do these things. But no, I guess to get back to the point, it would be a contracted rate is what that would budget for. That would give us, I believe, 50 kilometers. It would give us of resurfacing at 1 inch of gravel and about 25 kilometers at 2 inches of gravel, if we were to go with that amount.
But the question I have though is I don't know how much money we spent to open that pit up and we're not gonna use it. I can't understand that. Like,
I will
can't-
agree, because I was on count, how many years did we fight to get?
Well,
that
we were
pit?
12, 15 years trying to get that pit.
I know, and then all of a sudden we have it, and then we aren't.
Like, and.
And I understand what you've come forward from a cost-effective perspective, Ryan. Like, you know, it's better value to do it this other way, but I'm trying to figure out why did we lobby so hard to get that pit? And we're not gonna use, I remember how much, and then even,
It was over
didn't we have
15
to
years.
pay the individuals around there as well? And like, you know, a significant amount of money, like, yeah, like, you know, I'm just, so if we're not using it, why did we do it?
I have no
I'm of the
idea.
same mind. I understand where you're coming from, but
I have no idea, but there's gotta be some way that that it's cheaper to use our own gravel than it is to haul gravel in. I can't understand how it's cheaper. Like, I do understand that the wear and tear on the vehicles and different things. But I just don't know.
yes, go ahead, Gloria.
Part of the report that had come back in relation to that is the one thing is that we do have to pay a royalty to different owners around it for every ton of gravel that we pull out. So once we actually calculate all of that additional amount in, I want to say the savings was it like 50 cents or less per ton, which is where we're looking at where we dedicate 2 to 3 weeks of our staff's time and not being able to do any other things. What does that actually make it worth saving the 50 cents per ton versus having somebody else bring it in? I believe is kind of what that report had gone through, because there is royalties that we do have to pay for every ton that does come out of that pit.
But why did we go after the pit then? Like, I mean, we spent, how many, didn't we hire that consultant
Yeah.
every year to, that we had to
I'm
pay
sure-
him?
I think it was 17 years we put
Yeah.
in there to secure that pit.
Why did we do it then if we're not? Like, you know, like 50 cents a ton is what we save. It's like, and we spend a lot of money on that consultant guy every year lobbying on our behalf.
Maybe we should find out what we've got invested in that thing, but like, I don't know.
I would like to know. Can we sell it?
What's not ours to sell? We could,
We
I
could
don't
sell
have
the
a license. You can sell a
license,
license.
but you wouldn't be able to sell the land, but you can sell the license.
We could sell it. Like, I'd like to know, okay, it's not going to address what we're looking at here, but I would like to know what we've invested over the years in this, because the whole 10 years I was on, 8 years I was on, we were fighting for this pit.
yeah,
So
and I don't know. And-
anyway, Ron, you wanted to say something, sorry.
I just, sorry, through his worship to council as well. I just want to put out there as well, even the report I brought in, it might have been 50 cents a ton we're saving, but that doesn't account for any of the redevelopment we have to do and the phasing and construction of this pit and the man hours involved. It's gonna be a fee. My thought personally too is we have some of the best stone, probably in Ontario up north, that we can get for trap rock. That's available to us in our backyard. And for us not to be kind of utilizing that as well as, I don't have a word for it, I'll say.
Your worship.
Yes. go
Just
ahead.
briefly, I think a lot of it stemmed from the perception of having your own makes it free.
Mhm.
At the time of when it first began. And I think as we do further research into individual costs on activities, we're going to discover that there are times it makes sense for us to do it, and there are times where it's cheaper for someone else to do it. And that's why it's important to be doing these investigations,
Exactly.
to just see the viability of each task we're doing.
Yes, Counselor.
We pay for the fit all the time, or only when we draw them?
We pay a flat fee per year that we have to pay regardless whether we use it or not. I believe the net across all of them is what, 3,000 for all of them? Yeah, so about 3,000 regardless. Now that's not to say that every year it's going to be cheaper to haul it in if all of a sudden our contractors have a spike in their rates. Our royalty fees are a locked in rate for many, many, many years. It's a very long-term agreement. So it's not to say, so right now the 50 cents does not necessarily seem worth it, but maybe in 5 years, all of a sudden that 50 cents becomes $5 or more. So it's not that it's necessarily never going to be used. It's just that at this point in time, with the rates that we're seeing on contracted, it's not as beneficial, but there, if that jumps, our rates for the royalties are going to stay the same.
Okay. And you're saying it's only costing us around 3,000 a year to keep it going. Do we have to do anything in a maintenance perspective on the site in addition to that minimal fee?
To his worship, typically you have to do like a remediation program depending on how much you strip out of that pit.
If it's stripping out?
Yes, that's right. So we haven't stripped anything, I believe, this year. I believe we did last year to get what we have there. But I don't believe there's anything at this point.
Okay. So then it's sort of like an asset that, as people start to deplete whatever it is around here, then all of a sudden it might cost more to ship it in. And then we have our own pit here, so it becomes something that it's more of a cushion for the future. I'm trying to justify why we did what we did.
I don't know, my God, I was the biggest burr in the saddle on that one. But your worship, so there was also another thing, when we opened that pit up, we were gonna change the Esker Road. So I don't know where we are with that right now. I know they're still going around the pit. I don't know.
Gloria?
So from the discussions that we had with that is that road didn't need to be amended until we go to start actually pulling out, because there was, I think, 3 different sections of the pit that we needed to pull from. And if we stay in just this little part, we don't need to move that road yet. And if we're not stripping anything out, we can keep postponing that adjustment to the road, because that was only if we started full on active operations of pulling out like 20,000 tons per year.
Any other questions? Good discussion.
Yeah.
Sure, how about can we take
Yeah,
a
we can take a 5-minute break, come back
5-minute
at
break.
3 o'clock.
Yeah. We good?
Yeah.
Okay,
When you should yell.
Actually, it wasn't all impressive.
oh, where's Jimmy again? Jesus.
Sit here and talk all the time.
Okay,
Didn't have enough clothes.
we're ready, Gloria? Okay. Moving on to Parks and Rec now, or?
Is your mic on?
Yep.
All right, so moving to the next department is, so we're going to section 7, which is environmental, and we will start with sewer. And then move to water and then waste. So we'll pass it over to the manager of public works.
Thank you, Gloria, the council and his worship. Revenues, under sewer and wastewater. User fees increased due to the need to increase quarterly rates to set aside sufficient amounts in a reserve for the future. Capital needs of the sewer system. This increase would need to take the rate from $144.66 to per quarter to $134.51 per quarter. Each $10 increase in the user fee rate is $19,440 in reserve transfers. Expenditures, long-term debt payments. Payments budget has decreased $29,551.68 as the McClellan and Pomeroy projects in 2023 were less than originally expected and therefore didn't need as much debt. Material cost increased $12,658 due to the following. Hydro costs for the pumping station lagoon building have been increased $13,000 to better reflect actual experience costs. Insurance has been decreased $342 as once the final bill came in, there was no amounts. No amount of the premiums coded specifically towards the sewer system. Contracted services increased $24,178.35 due to the following. That's our rising rate contract increase with Aqua, which is $6,612. In the past, the operating contract, overall responsible operator was placed fully in the water department. However, Aqua's informed us that this portion of the cost is related to the sewers overall responsible operator, which has been split over to the sewer account now instead of just solely on water. And I believe the rest is capital.
Gloria, I just wanted to go back up to the top line under revenues. It said this increase would need to take the rates from 144 per quarter to 134. It should be the
Yes.
opposite.
Yes,
First,
so
okay.
when I had originally put this in, we were still showing the full 10-year capital transfer needs for, and when I changed it, I forgot to change that line
Okay.
as well. So right now, this is reflecting transfers to reserve needs of only 178,000, which is based off of a 5-year need cycle, which would leave us with, yes, there could be a reduction in the sewer fee to $134.51. So looking at this, it actually costs us on an annual basis, $381 for operating costs alone. So not including any of the capital needs of maintaining the sewer system and replacing it as the sewer pipes age. So that's about $95 per quarter. So basically, if they were reduced to $134.51, that would be just more than $39 every quarter collected from every connection to go towards the capital needs of the sewer system.
Yes, I'll go ahead.
What is that currently at with that rate now?
That rate right now is $144.66.
That's what, okay, so I'm confused. We're talking about water and sewer here.
No, this is sewer
Sewer,
only.
okay, so,
This is sewer only.
so right now, the public's paying 144?
The sewer users, yes, pay $144.66 per quarter.
And we're proposing to put that down to 134.
Yes, which would leave us though with only 178,000 going into the reserves.
And going back to what Deputy Mayor Demers was talking about, so it's currently at what are they paying today without anything, looking at anything?
144.
Why would we reduce it? When we should be building up our reserves?
Yeah, so if we keep it the same, then it will increase so if I change this here, 144.66, that will increase the reserve transfer to 197,000.
Well, I mean, if people are currently paying it, like here we are, we're trying to find ways to build up our reserves. Why are we doing reductions? I could see if it was going to be an increase, but let's maintain the status quo. That's my preference. We got to build those reserves back up.
Or your worship, or is there an opportunity with our loan
To pay
to
loan.
pay principal?
Mhm.
So with the debt, we haven't converted yet, but with the Infrastructure Ontario,
Yeah.
you can't make prepayments. What we can do is we can do it basically in-house where if we had, say, a surplus in a certain amount, or we wanted to prepay a certain amount, we would put it into an investment that guarantees a certain amount of interest. Usually you want at least whatever you would be paying in interest on the loan. And you use that for a year instead of raising your rates, or the very last year, that investment would be used to pay the debt payments in that year, as opposed to having the user rates pay for it in that year. But there's no early payments allowed under Infrastructure Ontario.
Regardless, I think we should leave the rate as it is. And then build up our reserves or look at other ways so we can spend it that's going to reduce the amount of debt that we have. Okay.
All right, so then the water is the next one for discussion at 7.4.1 and 7.5.
To his worship and council, materials have decreased 1,107 due to the following: hydro costs for the wells and treatment plant were less used in 2024 and expect a $5,000 savings. Insurance was increased $393 to reflect the expected premium increase. Cost of hydrants has been increased $1,000 to reflect the rising cost of these items. We're asking for $2,500 extra in our water meters. There's currently water meters that we can't replace because we have no budget left for them. So we need to go on a bit of a blitz next year to catch up on these. Contracted services decrease $6,833 due to the following: rising rates in our Aqua contract. That's $8,700. And I kind of spoke to it early. In the past, the operating contract was fully placed in the water department. However, Aqua has informed us that a portion of these costs relate to the sewer system. 2025, we are proposing to reflect the reduction of water department in the water department for the amount allocated to sewer, reduction in $15,534.19. Rents and financial expenses increase as it relates to the payment in lieu of property taxes for our water system. And the rest is capital.
Okay, so I want to go back up to the top line, looking at revenues.
Yes, so with the revenues, when we look at just the 5-year needs for the water budget of transfers to reserve needed of 222,000, that would require us to raise the rates from $115.73 per quarter up to $184.41 per quarter. So this is a significant increase and is not necessarily financially feasible for most households on the system. And so basically every $10, it's 20,000 in reserve transfer. So I guess if 222,000 is not sufficient, what did we want to lower that to? How high are we wanting the water to increase? To be able to get some amount set aside into reserves for our water needs in the next couple of years.
Well, I agree. I think that should be a gradual increase to get to this 184. I mean, that is a huge jump. So,
That's way too much.
yeah, so I don't know, like, do we like, ultimately this 184 is where we would like to be. Like, what in 2026, what would we be looking at? Roughly around the same amount, a little bit more?
A lot more. I'm trying not to look too much into the 26 because we haven't looked at what other funding sources for potential capital needs exist out that far. Because it's saying right now over $300 per quarter, which is definitely not feasible at this time.
And this is because of,
The capital replacement needs that we have. A lot of our water and sewer systems both were installed in the 50s, 50s through 70s. The
we're
old,
looking at infrastructure again, aging infrastructure.
yeah. So they only last about 75 years for cast iron pipes, and all the sewer were all asbestos cement, which we do need to get removed eventually and disposed of appropriately. So it's just the timing of when our system was installed versus now the natural renewal needs of that system.
So I think, it's prudent to be responsible, but we also have to be realistic.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and then I think it's evident that we will not be raising 300 and some next year either, because that is out of the realm of possibility. Or financial viability for the residents of the village of Tweed and our businesses as well. So, if we look at, you said for each $10 is 20,000 allocated
Yes.
to reserves. Well, and maybe we do like either $20 or $30 maximum this year, and then possibly the same next year, whatever, taking into account that we have all of these infrastructure needs which are coming down the pipeline, and hopefully there will be funding in order to assist us in that regard. Does anybody have any comments? Please go ahead.
Your
Councillor
worship,
Palmetier.
I know that I've seen some places their water and sewer are on par.
Yeah,
This one.
That's still an increase of like $29, but it's more manageable than.
mhm.
So you're suggesting the 144 rate that's what you're meaning? Like,
That's
Okay, no,
what
I'm just
I'm
making sure I
referring
understood what you
to.
meant
It's
by
just a
par.
thought, but I'm
They're on
also,
par.
I also
Worth-
don't-
Definitely worth entertaining.
I'm also don't live within the village boundaries, so.
so with the on par, that would have our transfer to reserve at 142,500. So it's a little more than half of the need for the next 5 years. So that's not necessarily terrible. It's obviously not where we need to be, but obviously we can't do the increase that's required either.
How
So
did Bancroft get into the situation that they did where the government stepped in and
They
just,
put in a water treatment plant.
so they
They were
had,
gonna service the neighboring municipality and the neighboring municipality back too.
and so then what, and so Bancroft village residents absorbed the cost of that, but was there a financial, like, like what happened, like,
So once the province stepped in, from my understanding, is the water rate study and sewer rate study were established, and what that study said the rates needed to be, it was established regardless of what that increase was. So they did see significant increases all in that 1 year, and I believe they are paying close to about $1,000 per quarter for sewer and water for anyone on the Bancroft.
so we want to
system.
make sure we don't end up in that.
Yeah, so we
I
want to.
think what we do is I like entertaining what Councillor Palmetier has said, making both equal. And then doing it that way from now on, and then, because we've got to get ahead of this game, because if we don't, people are going to pay the price later on down the road. We
Yeah.
gotta be vigilant in this regard. Yes, go ahead.
So your worship, what was your suggestion then, Councillor Palmetier?
Through your worship to Councillor Flailers, to put the water and sewer rates on par for them both to be the same at the 144.66 per quarter.
So that's an increase of,
Like $30.
Yeah, it's like a $30 a quarter increase instead of the $70.
and leave the sewer as it is.
Yeah,
Yes.
But your worship, I got quite a few nasty phone calls when the rates went up, and it's not funny, I'm gonna tell you, but some of the things they called me were quite amusing. But the people are on a restricted income, they can't afford this, and I know that we have to pay for things as we are required to, but we also have and I'm gonna get in trouble for this one, but we also have Airbnbs that are not paying any additional costs for water and sewer. We've got a resort down the road that's paying top bucks.
Mhm.
We've got a motel down the road paying top bucks. We've got a retirement home paying top bucks for water and sewer. And the rest of these guys at these Airbnbs are getting freebies. And I know they would pay out an overage for overage use. But is it fair that they're not paying their fair share?
I think
I
one
don't
of the
know
things, one of the things we talked about too is we want to see about zoning these places as commercial.
So I was gonna ask that question when the impact lady was here, and I might phone her and ask her. anyway,
Yeah.
But. Like, you know, and some of these people, like I say, on a restricted
Mhm.
income. They're just scratching.
Yeah,
For the next-
people are hanging on by a thread.
And we also invested a huge amount of money to have development
Mhm.
in our municipality, and we can't even build a house.
No,
Like, so it goes back to this thing, oh yeah, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that, yep, there's money here. We never get any help
no.
for anything. We need help. And we need it now. If we could get some development here. I'm sure it's gonna cost us money to develop. But at the end of the day, I think it's gonna put money in our bank account as well.
Well, definitely will. Go ahead, Gloria.
One thing that I've been wanting to bring to council, and I believe I briefly discussed this actually with the mayor, to address maybe some of the inequities of the water and sewer users of right now, we're largely a flat base rate, and it's only if they exceed 36 cubic meters per quarter do they pay a usage fee. There are some municipalities that have gone pure usage. So other than maybe establishing a flat rate of what you would need from a capital basis, that if you use only 24 cubic meters in a quarter, then you're only paying for 24. So our users who are good at conserving water would actually see a reduction in their quarterly rates. And those who are using right at 36, they would probably see about the same, but those who are using more might end up paying more. So this would then accommodate ones who are using a lot more certain times a year than others. Yes, they right now would pay a usage fee if they exceed those 36 cubic meters, but if they have 1 or 2 months where it's a lot and then nothing, that would still be caught and captured that they're going to pay for the actual water that they use. The only issue with that is the transitioning of it is you're going to want to have a public meeting that is just on the transition, what it would look like, what the cost could potentially be. And that's something that you wouldn't be able to transition right away, but it is something that you could look at transitioning maybe for the 2026 year if we were wanting to look at that, because then regardless of whether someone has 3 units in their house and they're somehow getting by with only 2, if they use a lot of water, they're going to pay for it. If there's someone who doesn't use a lot of water, then they only pay for what they actually use. So that is, as we have heard that, we have had complaints at the front office where individuals are like, but I only use 28 cubic meters, but you're still charging me for 36. And that's because that's what the bylaw says we have to do. So that is something that could be considered as well to, and it also helps encourage conserving as well, because then people are going to feel a difference if they conserve water in their pocketbook.
When I was on council, before we commissioned a water rate study. Remember when we did that? Let's just resurrect that and circulate it just to start the discussion on this. I think the important thing though we have to realize is we have made significant investments. Like we've upgraded the equipment in our wellhead over there. We've dug another well like as a backup. All of these things we're getting that new uranium thing,
Second crossing
Exactly.
across the river.
all those things have to be paid for, and they have to, in order to ensure that residents get good quality clean water, and so like all those investments have to be paid for. And as we struggle to pay for everything in our community, and again, it's going back to the fact that we're not even talking about replacing the old infrastructure that's providing all of that water and sewer out from people's homes. That has to be replaced. And so eventually we have, that's why we have to keep raising these costs, because as we all know, costs are not going down. And then we've got the water tower that we're looking at. Hopefully we can find a cost-effective solution to that. But if we have to pay for that outright, how much is it? roughly?
It was 650 to 700,000.
See, like, you know, that's a huge chunk of coin. Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Actually, I had a question, Mayor, about that tower relining now. Aqua said the last meeting that they thought that they could spot fix or whatever in there. Is that total replacement in your 5-year projection?
That total replacement right now is not, as we have taken Aqua's assumption. I believe it's been dropped to maybe about 200,000 of what we think maybe the spot amounts would be. Because we're hoping that when we do our inspection in 2025, that we're not going to have to reline the entire tower, because that also requires it being out of service, usually about a week or two. Yeah.
And they say with the spot job thing, they can do it without closing.
That is correct, which means then you don't have to go into a boil water advisory, because when you usually have to, when all of a sudden you lose your tower. So we want to try to avoid that as much as we can, but obviously if we need to, we'll need to, but.
Okay. Okay, well, good discussion. I think I'd like to see us put in at this stage what you have proposed. And then, like, you know, again, this is a draft budget. It's still open for discussion for us, but we have to show to the residents why we need to do this. Okay, and we also have to acknowledge that what we do has an impact on people who are hanging on by a thread. No, I don't want to get into detail. There's something I've working on the side to try and see what can be done for that. But thank you very much for raising it. Okay. Next.
Before we get into the final waste one, I just want to give a brief explanation for the potential recycling aspect of this before the manager goes into the details of the actual operation of the facility. So I have been working with Circular Materials Ontario, known as CMO, for several months, so trying to negotiate a contract, because as of July of 2025, they are required to, the province is required to ensure that the producers are paying for all of the residential recycling. We do have details there of what that actually means of being eligible versus ineligible within our budget binder. For anyone online wanting to look at that, the details are identified on 7.9. But with that, if we can get this contract negotiated, we're hoping for approximately 28,000 or so, hopefully more per year, that will come to us to help pay for the recycling portion of our landfill. If we do not manage to negotiate this agreement and we can't get an agreement that everybody is happy with, the province will be required to set up their own recycling facility, a depot for all of our residential users, and they will be required to stop at 2 places. They will be required to stop at the recycling depot and then stopping at our waste side. Because the producers are required to pay for the residential portion of recycling. So we're hoping that it's not going to impact our operations or change any how we're doing, that we'll be able to negotiate this agreement. We have been working for several months. Unfortunately, the individual we had been working with is no longer with CMO, and there was about 3-4 weeks where we weren't getting responses to emails because we were one of the clients that somehow fell through the cracks. Which seems to be what happens for us with them, as we fell through the cracks back in 2020 when they were somehow informed that there were no depots in our region and that we were all curbside, which is not true for our facility, as about 80% of our residents are depot only. And so we've been having to go through special hoops that were the other municipalities didn't have to go through, because they got in at the same time that they were supposed to with everybody else. And so we're going through an extra step to try to get in and get this negotiated. So you'll see we have this new line there called other grants, which is basically our estimate of where we're hoping CMO will end up with paying us for the producer's share of the recycling of our depot. If that does not go through, then there will need to be a report coming to council to decide how our operations will be looking like going forward, as residents will have 2 sites they will have to go to.
The whole thing is just a tomorrow. I mean, the fact too that we're going to have businesses and not-for-profits and government in this community who will not get recycling pickup.
Yes, we will either have to offer that at a price only that either the full tax base pays to keep that going and then we offer it, or they'll have to find their own source. That is, I put in a kind of a decision tree in there to kind of help explain the thoughts that would need to be considered for the ineligible sources, so the non-residential piece. The good thing is that it's only about 6% of our properties that actually qualify in that, per the report that MPAC provided us when we were starting the negotiations with CMO. So it's only 6% of our properties, but it is 6% of our properties that we will need to sort out. Are we going to provide curbside or depot services for them, or are we going to make them find their own alternate recycling service?
So why would anybody look for an alternate? Why wouldn't they just go dump it somewhere or try to
Or
unload it? I mean, the whole
waste
thing
or
is
garbage.
so
Yes.
screwed up. Anyway, we got to get ahead of this because as you keep saying, people are on our file, they fall off our file, we get set back behind. Maybe we should call Rick in here, Rick Bessie, and have him explain to us why the government's going down this route. And what do they suggest that small communities like us do? I mean, we're always left trying to find solutions to problems that they create. Okay, how about they come in, if they've created a problem, what is your solution to this problem? Because this is ridiculous. Everything we go to do ends up costing us more money or in another inconvenience to residents within our municipality. And we pay the price. Around this table and you out there, you pay the price for this because people get upset with us because of a decision that we've had nothing to do or not even involved with. Okay, go ahead. Yes, go ahead, Councillor Valley.
So just for some clarity, you said if we can't strike a deal with CMO, then the province is responsible.
Sorry, CMO is the province's organization they've created to manage basically as a central bank for all the producers. So producers will have to pay CMO, and then CMO is the one who actually pays municipalities or pays the contractor who is doing curbside pickup or that case. So sorry, in this case, when I said province, I'm meaning CMO in this case, because it is provincially kind of governed. So if we can't strike a deal, then CMO is required by legislation to provide an alternate depot somewhere, and it may not even be in our municipality, for our residents to take their recycling to, because they are responsible for it.
Sell them Hunt Club. Sell them that site.
So it's more of a, they're the ones who have to provide that service to the residents who are out of a residential eligible source.
CMO is representing the province. Isn't it their best interest to come to some sort of agreement with all municipalities?
Yes, and we've been trying. Unfortunately, I've been informed by CMO that we are a unique recycling depot compared to many others in the province, and it costs us a lot more because we have a fully staffed recycling depot. Most other places, they might have a staff at the gate that says recycling's over there, waste is over there, and that's it. And it's up to the individuals to sort it, get it in the correct bins, and a lot of times recycling bins do get thrown out and wasted because they're not sorted properly. In our case, we have staff that are there helping people get it into the right bin, making sure it's sorted as it's being dumped into our bins. So we have someone constantly when we're open at those recycling, and often two individuals. So from my understanding, we are very unique to the rest of the province in providing basically a full service recycling depot compared to others. So they're fighting on the cost aspect of it.
So essentially, the potential exists, we can be penalized because we're doing an exceptional job that nobody else
Yeah.
does.
So I've tried to argue that it means you're going to have less recycle loads that are wasted. Since I've been here, I'm only aware of one full large waste where the whole amount had to go. And that was because somehow sharps ended up in the unit. And of course, none of our staff were equipped, or the contractors were equipped to handle that. We didn't have their appropriate PPE. So obviously that load had to be wasted, but we don't waste giant loads of recycling because we have a more, so I've been working on that angle to make sure that they're aware that it means you're going to have less waste, but it's the cost numbers that is fighting them at the moment. And we're hoping that we'll at least negotiate around that 28,000 level.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, it's 25 to 4. We've got still stuff to do,
Yeah.
so let's move on.
So we'll move into the actual details of the waste department now.
Through his worship, we'll go to expenditures. Salaries and benefits are expected to increase another $4,900 as per the approved wages and benefits bylaw. Material increase $3,140 due to the following. That's repair and maintenance cost. We've decreased that about $1,000. We typically have a scale inspector come out and do 2 calibrations a year. But we're gonna go down to 1 as there's not really a need for it. They never test out a spec. If we notice something, we'll have them in earlier to test it. Communications advertising has been decreased $100. We're looking at putting a new sign up next year. We'll be able to do that for the budgeted amount. Equipment maintenance has been increased $4,000 to reflect the aging equipment. We have our dozer out there, our speed dozer. It's currently having sensor issues and locking up on the one side. It also needs new rollers put in. Training costs have been increased $1,000. I want to get some of these staff out to these conferences and kind of get thinking a different way and kind of bring back new ideas on how to be more efficient and improve things. Supplies have decreased $1,000 to reflect closer to actual experience costs in the last few years. Insurance increased $240. Contracted services decreased $39,499 due to the following. The rising cost for disposal of bulk items upon their removal. We got the 5% increase this year that was approved, so that costs us an extra $6,250. Quinny waste expenses have been decreased $51,345 based on Quinny waste 2025 budget plus $10,000 for non-eligible recycling costs from July to year end. Curbside waste pickup for the village has increased $5,596 due to rising costs. The tender's up for advertising in 2025 and prices at that time are unknown. Therefore, the assumed current state of the year. These are fully offset by the special tax levy charged to the village residents to cover the costs, and only those who receive the service pay for these costs. I believe the rest is yours, Gloria.
So for Renson Financial, as you would have seen also in the water department, and you'll see in the Parks and Rec department, we have 3 properties that we are required to pay a payment in lieu. So a portion has to go to the county and to the school boards, as they are ones that if they were not owned by the municipalities and they were owned by somebody else, they would be deemed a commercial operation and therefore should have been subject to tax. The transfers to reserve, this is this is more of a paperwork part here that when the revenue comes in for our bulk items, it goes into the reserve and then we pull from the reserve to offset, just so that way we know the exact amount for those is getting where it needs to be, and the excess that we budgeted into our user fees does stay in that reserve. And it also includes the amount of the income that gets so the income on our bag tag reserve fund and the investment it makes there, that 21,000 is put right into the reserve. It's not actually used for operations. It's kept in the reserve fund itself. So basically, when we look at this with the estimated hours that we would be open for 2025, we are looking at approximately $165 per operating hour of our landfill to have it open. Any questions or changes? Comments?
No.
So then we'll move into section 8, which is, we'll start with parks. And we do have the recreation supervisor here who can speak to some of these changes. If there's any specific questions. As with all of the other departments, all of the suggested changes have been summarized in the highlights section first before the actual schedule. So at 8.1.1 is the start of all the actual changes being requested. I'll pass it over to you if you'd like.
Not really, but.
Is there anything, Jay, that stands out for you that?
Well, I never really got a chance to look at it all that close.
The biggest two increases in materials, one being your repairs and maintenance on your vehicles. But that was requested to be increased 6,800. You can
Yeah, well,
explain.
our vehicles are just getting a little bit older. Just because, right? We haven't had any upgrades in the since 2016 was our first new vehicle. Everything's way older than that.
Another $6,480 increase is our estimate for insurance, which right now, until we get the estimates from the insurance broker, which they are working on right now, we hope to have in the next week or so, is about a 10% estimate. That's basically what we've done across all departments, 10% increase over last year's actual. And so that was about just shy of 6,500 for the Parks Department increase in the budget.
We had about, was it 410,000 last year?
Yes, plus the additional 8,900 for cyber insurance.
Right, okay, so. And then they came in considerably lower than ones we'd have been dealing with, so
Yes.
hopefully that wasn't just to get the
Yeah.
contract and then.
Yeah, with speaking with the broker, my 10% estimate is probably fairly close, as he is seeing that a lot of them are between 6 and 12. Largely because there's been generic inflationary impact. When you look at so he was running off a 6% inflation, and then you have just standard other costs that they're going to tack on. So I'm hoping that the 10% is going to be close to what our actual estimate will be, but the company was very late to providing our broker all of the necessary forms that we have to complete, and it took us 2 to 3 weeks to gather all the necessary information. So it was handed to them about a week and a half ago. So we're hoping that we'll have numbers very soon to actually know what we're looking at. But right now it's an estimate of 10% across all departments.
Okay, thank you. I don't know if people realize too, in our parks budget, we're also required to maintain abandoned cemeteries. And that's been downloaded to us by the province over many years. But it's another expense that we incur that we have nothing really to do with. But that is something that we have to undertake as legislated. Okay.
And we have 7 of those that we've had, I believe, since the 70s and 80s. Pre-amalgamation, unfortunately, in Township of Hungerford, pre-amalgamation was the one who had the most of them. They've changed some rules recently so that now when individuals want to come and say they want to abandon it and give it to us, we can deny them. But we do have 7 that we have to maintain, and we have 1 that came with an investment, but the investment, that perpetual trust generates us a whole $1 of interest every month. And so those $12 goes towards our grass cutting every year, which doesn't cover anything. But yeah, so there are things that have come to us where we have no other revenue source to pay for the grass cutting needs out at those cemetery sites.
Okay.
Overall, the Parks Department do have just over 38 acres of parks and recreation outdoor facility sites. So it averages about $10,527 per acre to maintain our parks and recreation facilities.
Okay, moving on to Arena.
So with the Arena, the materials had the biggest increase of just shy of 40,000. A lot of that is 16,000 of that is the insurance. And then hydro cost for the arena due to just rising prices, have been estimated to increase about 20,000. We're hoping it would be less than that, but that's where we estimate it to be at this point. So that makes up the majority of that nearly $40,000 increase in our materials. Just to point out, in the contracted services, although there's an increase there of $2,000 for the, basically the referee for the Saturday and Sunday leagues, that is fully offset by the user fees. There's no cost to the actual taxpayers for that. The users of those leagues are the ones who actually pay for those fees. They changed it where we have to pay the referee directly and we collect that from the team. So there's no cost to the taxpayer. So after what we currently charge in ice rental fees, we are looking with the estimated committed rented hours for next year in contracts. We're expecting it to cost about $129 net per hour that we have for contracted ice time. Now that's after the revenues. So if you look at it at just pure operating cost per hour, it's actually $251.74 to operate per rented hour of ice time.
Now I see under revenues, it said that there was a decrease. So you consider that, like, Marmora and Lake is out, or you think they're?
Yeah.
um,
So the manager had spoke to me on this one, that she has chosen to budget it in at the actual committed hours that are in signed contracts only and not include any of the extra. So somebody comes in and rents it or books it a couple of weeks in advance, those type of revenues are not yet included. The concept being that those additional amounts would help build and that we could put it aside into a reserve each year, building a little mini surplus. And not relying on those additional one-off rentals.
But I mean, it's still considered revenue. What are we looking at? Is it like $1,000? Is it?
Unfortunately, I don't have that number. I would.
Wouldn't it be the $5,400?
Well, if it is 54, then we include it as revenue as far as I'm concerned. It's
Yeah, and
like,
yeah, we can increase this.
I don't know.
back
Jay
up.
was going to say something, so go ahead, Jay.
To the mayor, and council, I'm not exactly sure what the cost would be for extra renters. Now I know we had quite a few last year. This year we don't really have a whole lot of ice time extra to give unless people come in from 8 to noon in the morning. Everything else is pretty well booked up,
So
solid,
it's
so
all-
it's hard to rent out ice right now to get extra revenue.
But I mean, we did have extra revenue last year in 2024, 2023, 24, I guess it would be, because now we're like 2024, 25.
Yes.
So you're saying we don't have the extra time this year. So, but if that's the case, then that means we've rented more time to other people since we've taken away time that's available to these groups.
We have rented more ice time to minor hockey, which is a lower
Reduced
price to opposed to an outsider coming in and renting the ice.
Okay. Go ahead, Deputy Mayor. Thank you, Jay.
So the mayor, just looking at 2023, the actual. Like we're going down here,
Yeah. So
the user charges. Has that been proportionate to the increases?
So the 2023, when you're looking at the total user charges there of 265,000, you need to keep in mind that also includes the Oil Kings because we did not sell them until I believe it was October
Yeah.
31st or something like that of 2023. So it had half a season and a bit of revenues from the Oil Kings in 2023 that we're not expecting in all of the others, but that also means we had those expenses as well that we're not expecting. So you'll see that the expenses went down, the budgeted in 2023 of 475, they went down to 388. So that reduced revenue made sense there. so 2023 is in the arena department, it's just a hard one to actually compare to because that was a transitional year, unfortunately.
Okay. Okay, so you had made a comment, Gloria, that of that 5,400, if we bring it in, we would put it into, treat it and put it into a reserve. Okay, if that is the case, then I say we then withdraw it immediately to pay down the costs of the operations of the arena.
Well, that's the other thing is instead of putting it into reserve, if we have extra, that would be the decision. So usually there's a resolution that comes every November or December of what you want to do with
Right.
your surplus. And so you could choose to say the arena surplus stays in there to
Okay,
offset the costs.
any other questions on the arena? Seeing none, let's move on to other recreation services.
So in the other recreation services, this includes the 4 Hamlet facilities as well as the library, the pool and the splash pad. So, sorry, I'm just trying to make this visible here. Okay. So, this is the first year that the manager has actually budgeted for some donations. This was specifically because we have consistently gotten 4,000 each year for several years towards the pool to be able to help run and provide the free family swims. And so that's been budgeted in this year and to $4,000. The materials have increased about 15,000. Insurance was 6,100 of that. And the heat and internet costs and the rising prices of all that across the 4 facilities that we pay that for now, was increased to reflect the additional 8,800 that we're expecting in those costs as well for the Hamlets. So that's the majority of that $15,000 increase. The external transfers, that increase is largely due to the library board's amount that we saw earlier. They requested a 3% increase of their amount, so that's $5,065.
So you're saying for each hamlet, it costs us $2,000.
So each Hamlet, we pay 2,000 to them for their operating that they get into their bank accounts to pay for all their basic. So for using Queensboro as an example, it pays for their kitchen supplies, bathroom supplies, their cleaning, the grass cutting,
Well,
those type of things. So we
thought that
pay
was-
them a flat 2,000 a year and it's
Okay,
up to
no.
them.
that's fine. I thought that was for the internet.
No, the
Okay.
internet and the heat were decisions made over the last couple of years that are over and on top of, so we're still getting our budgets reflecting that. So last year we only reflected the heat. Now we're trying to reflect all of the internet and making sure that we're going with the increasing prices as well.
Any
Okay.
questions? Okay,
If not, if we can move to section 9. Let's go here. This will go through the community development departments. So the biggest change you'll see here is in user charges. There was $12,000 increase, and that's because every other year we switch between Farm to Table and Taste of Tweed, and the one is a much larger event than the other. So we'll see that reflected also in the materials as well. The government transfers, we've consistently received an additional $900 for the last 3 years for the Canada Day grant. So we're hoping that that will continue, and I've actually put that right into the budget. The other 60,000 relates to the new tourism growth fund grant that we've received. And so that's then also reflected in the additional costs that we'll see in the materials for that specific program. One thing that you will see is in prior years, we have always had the community improvement reserve that had been set up when you initially established your CIP. And that was reserve was fully used up during 2024. So there's no amounts left to pull in for 2025. However, there is a small amount in there that we're showing as a transfer from reserves, as the government has given us permission that we could use the teeny tiny summit excess amount of the $2,300 to help towards the tourism growth fund cost as well. So that's being reflected in this as well. So that's an overall increase in the revenues of 65,000. Material increases of 87,000. As mentioned, the farm to table instead of Taste of Tweed, that was nearly 14,000 of that increase. The advertising costs and product development, advertising was increased 40,000, product development by 22,300, which is in relation to the Tourism Growth Fund grant. So that's the majority of that 87,000 there. Some of the other costs, as was mentioned when we were doing administration, the request was to pull the plowing match and the volunteer appreciation into this department. So you'll see increases here, but again, it doesn't actually change your tax rate because it just pulled from one department and moved it to the other.
Is it possible for us to get the manager of community development to come back and report on the success over the years since the community improvement plan has been introduced, looking at how much money's been given out, how much money's been loaned, how much money's been paid back, you know, and whatnot, just to give us a sense of the kind of investment that's actually yielded for the primarily the downtown area.
Okay, yep, we can work
Thank
on
you.
getting a report from that department. So yeah, so overall, it's needs an additional 17,500 property taxes this year or for 2025 over 2024, which per property would be about $62 compared to just shy of $59 last year. So on a per property basis, we're talking about a $3 impact approximately.
Any questions?
We have some discussions at one point in time about farm to table versus Taste of Tweed and how often we were gonna do these things.
I thought we were just going to alternate it between years, but
It's always historically been alternated back and forth. I don't think there's been any discussion at the council table as at a formal council meeting. I have heard that the manager has talked about maybe having the one happen only every 3 years and maybe thinking of a new event. But at this time, what she's proposed and put forward here, I believe that whatever that new event would be is
And that's
possibly still
that is the
illuminating
discussion I
in
was
there.
having. I did have that with the manager. You know, broad kind of conversation.
because some of that is grant money to subsidize the cost of that. Other is purchase of ticket. Is it a cost recoverable exercise?
So I believe the net difference for the farm to table is about $2,500 or $3,000 to the taxpayer in net. And the Taste of Tweed is about 2,500. So the actual tax impact is
Minimal. Okay,
difference.
thank you. Good, thanks. Any other questions? Okay. Where do we stand?
So the last department, just briefly, is the planning department. This is where we
Yeah.
put all the zoning minor variances. There's not significant adjustments here other than reflecting some of the changes to the costs based on the estimated amount per file, based off of 2024's experienced cost levels. We're also estimating based for 2025, 20 rezoning files at the $1,300 current fee each, 4 minor variance files at $1,000 each, and 1 site plan file at about $1,200, which are our current user fee rates. So it's a net impact on the budget of about $1,200.
No questions on that. Anything else?
so if there's no other questions on the departmental, where we currently stand actually is a flat even 13%, as I took the time during our break to put in the benefit amount just briefly in one of the accounts to reflect it in here. So we're sitting at a 13% increase with total tax needed of $6,157,000 without transfers to reserve for our future capital needs as it stands with what was discussed today.
Okay, okay. Okay, I guess what we'll do is we'll leave, it's 4:00. And so we will leave, as I was hoping, the fee schedule till our next meeting. When would people like to meet just to discuss the fee thing?
The B fee and the final remaining community requests. There were
Okay.
3
Oh,
additional
right,
requests.
right. Sure.
I can't get your package changed for next week.
No, I'm not here. That's why he said that. Okay,
Gone for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
December gets to be busy. You want to wait till January?
that wouldn't be that long, would it?
You'd probably be looking at about an hour and a half, 2-hour meeting. If
Oh,
there's
2
any
hour,
additional
okay.
changes you'd be looking for. If it's just user fees, you could probably do that in an hour, but if you're looking at
Oh,
any other
I was wondering
adjustments,
about piggybacking on the December 10th meeting, or would we just like to move it to January 7th? Because then we have a council meeting on the 14th. Thoughts,
Right, so we're seeing January and stuff.
Jim? How about you?
Just keep this process going along.
Yeah.
That's just how I'm.
Why don't we do it? Are we okay to do it in December? Okay, and then and the 7th, we'll have a better look at everything we're looking at.
That's kind of
That's not final.
what we might be closed by then.
No. I don't want to be close till everybody else got theirs on the table. I'm not going to be the sacrificial lamb this year.
Just don't tell
That's right. So do you want to do it after our meeting on the 10th, or do you want to do the 17th, the 18th, 19th?
them. That makes sense for that here. Got a meeting, what we did today, and like 2 hours, we could get that on.
Are you okay with that, gang?
Yeah.
Mhm. So you, I hear heavy breathing over there.
Well, I just find it hard to put in full days here sometimes, that's all. Well,
Hey, you don't like me?
no, it's just you gotta work too.
Well, we'll do it on the 18th, 19th if you want.
Rather do that?
But
Yeah, that'd be,
18th or 19th?
that'd be better for me, but.
I'm good with either of those 2 dates,
What date was that?
18th or 19th, Wednesday or Thursday, 9 o'clock. Get in here, get it over with. Okay. I'm picking.
Just pick a day.
Okay, the 18th at 9. Yeah, right. Really, did you have to pick that day? And we're just going to be doing the community requests and the service fees.
Okay.
So I just want to put this. And we'll say 9 a.m. Okay. Oh, okay, so I'll go back to our agenda.
Yeah, so to clarify, we have pushed off section 13. 14 and 15.
Okay. Okay, could I have a mover to seconder to adjourn today's budget meeting, please? Thank you, Deputy Mayor Marsh. Thank you, Council Palmetier. Be it resolved that council adjourn at, Lori?